This episode of Watch Out for Fireballs is brought to you by specifically Ryan, who patronized us at patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv. Thank you, Ryan. And if you would like to join Ryan, head on over to patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv. Thank you. My name is Gary Butterfield.
My name is Cole Ross.
And you're listening to Watch Out for Fireballs. It is a Games Club podcast.
And this week we are talking about Resident Evil 5, which is a survival horror game developed and published by Capcom for the Xbox 360 and PS3 in 2009.
Indeed. And this episode is executive produced by Ryan.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you, Ryan.
Yeah. We're moving our way through. Not too many mainline Resident Evils after this.
No, and I think it's safe to say that they're downhill. Like, I like 6, you like 6. 0 is bad.
Yeah. Zero's bad. Revelations is a mixed bag. I recently streamed that. I hear Revelations 2 is good.
Also, not a mainline Resident Evil game.
Yeah, I suppose.
But also, like, we could still do it.
Yeah,
it's not a cat ear that I wanted it to.
Go ahead,
Survival
gerrymander Resident
horror.
Evil. Okay, all right. Yeah, okay, yeah, all right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, do you ever notice how some Resident Evils drive like this? This will be fun because I think that in some ways this is kind of a perfect WoF game where, like, there are good things to say about it, but also it's monumentally stupid. Like, just colossally, Like, do you think, Cole, would you agree? I don't know. We haven't talked about this. I think this might be the worst cast of a Resident Evil.
It's pretty bad. It's really, really rough. I mean, you have 3 villains, and when one of them is Irving and the other is Excella, it doesn't matter how much Wesker you get on the other side of that.
Yeah. Excella is named after a car. It feels like
after a car named after a spreadsheet,
like a model, like the new Ford Office Suite, like featuring the Excella.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the protagonist side, we both like Sheva. There's not a lot to Sheva, and
like
this
all
is
of Sheva is in her
Chris.
Little file. Yeah.
Yeah, like there's a 35-page biography on Sheva you can read.
Yeah, they could have put some of that in the game, but
yeah. Instead, though, she's just kind of Sheva-ing around.
Yeah.
And then this, I feel like, is one of those markers of, like, when Chris got turned into the Chris that I don't like as much now.
Mm-hmm.
Angry Bulk Chris.
It makes me.
Chris.
I played this and I kind of got a little bit worried about Resident Evil 8. Actually, how much is he going to figure in this?
Yeah. So killing Chris Redfield wouldn't be the worst thing for the series to do.
No, not at all.
Honestly. The cast and then also the racism and stuff, and we're going to talk about all of that. So this is going to be spicy, especially since mechanically this is Resident Evil 4 but worse.
Yes.
So in this, our protagonist character Sheva, who we mentioned, who's new, and this is her only appearance, and Chris Redfield from Resident Evil 1 are members of the BSAA and are sent to deal with a bioweapon outbreak in the fictional African region of Kajuju.
Yeah. The basic gameplay here is very similar to Resident Evil 4. We're not going to go hugely in depth on trying to break that down for you. You can go and listen to the generalities of that episode from a few years back if you want to if you want to see that. Mostly what I focused on when I made the notes was kind of the differences in the way that co-op kind of it changes that and breaks it to a certain degree.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Resident Evil 4 is one of those genre-defining games, kind of the beginning third-person over-the-shoulder, shooter game. And kind of the big thing with Resident Evil 4 was that it had this slower pace.
Yeah.
Enemies were comparatively slow, and you had to stop and aim for them. And that is true here as well.
Yes. Yeah. RE5 modernizes things a little bit by giving you some alternate control schemes. You can do the regular RE4 tank control kind of deal. But I think by default, it comes with letting you like strafe and walk forward with the left stick and, aim your camera with the right stick, which is a little bit, allows for more fluidity when you are running around, which is nice, in addition to like your turnaround buttons and stuff like that.
Yeah. And this is a more actionized, like it's Resident Evil 4, but a little bit more actiony.
Yes.
So it makes sense to have a little bit more limberness. The enemies, these are also not zombies. There's an original draft of this that had zombies, but instead, these are Plagas-infected poor people of a different race, which is Umbrella's kind of thing.
Yeah.
They're hitting them all. They're doing a Red Hot Chili Peppers around the world, but with different people they want to infect with Plagas.
Yeah. But yeah,
so
instead of being
the Magini.
Yeah, they're not the Ganados, they're the Magini, vaguely demons, I think is what that translates from, or something like that.
It's a couple things.
Yeah,
like it also has root words with genie, like a djinn.
Yes,
so like demonic people or monster people.
Yeah, they feel more aggressive than they do in RE4. RE4, they would kind of like walk toward you, like lumber toward you menacingly. Here we've got like the fast zombie version of these of these enemy types present more often. Yeah.
Well, the weird thing is they don't they run at you and then stop and walk.
Yes.
it's kind of the Magini shuffle. Like they it starts off feeling like everything's going to be so much faster, but when they get within like a certain radius,
yeah.
Like they just like they really slow it down.
They stand out at the side and wait their turn. Yeah.
Yeah. The biggest change of this is that this is a co-op game. It is designed to be co-op, whether you play it co-op or not. Either, you control Chris on your way through, and then either a second player, if you are lucky, or an AI control Sheva. This was not originally part of this pitch, and it changes a lot of RE4-ness to this. For the most part, to the worse. Like we'll talk about the co-op rounding that this does, but as a single player experience and kind of objectively, there are a lot of RE4 gains that are lost with this change.
Yes. I think primarily the thing that sticks out most to me about RE4 is that it is so finely tuned. Like it is about as perfect of a machine as you can get in terms of specifically the enemies that it throws at you and the pickups that they drop. Like, that's the miracle of Resident Evil 4 is the adaptive difficulty. Adding a new player who has their own kind of performance that is being watched. Just these other variables and things like mess with that. And this feels like a much more sloppily put together machine that takes the input of your play and provides output in the form of enemies and drops, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it falls under the entire like Resident Evil 4, but 20% worse.
Yes,
kind of thing. Like it's not like it's not doing any tuning. I would notice that after a boss fight, I would get a big, huge ammo cache that corresponded exactly to what I'd used. Basically things like that. Or before a boss, I would still get loaded up. Things like that are dynamic to prepare you for different ebbs and flows and difficulty. But it's not done as well.
Right.
The other thing is that since it's co-op, they assume double the firepower and double the thinking players. People, the protagonists, they're going to throw more at you.
Yeah.
So every one of those things that are kind of special encounters in Resident Evil 4, where you are being hounded by a large group of antagonists, are now much more common.
Yeah.
I would say mostly. Really, there's like one kind of long puzzle stretch, when you go to do Raiders of the Lost Ark stuff in the middle of the game. But before that, for the most part, big, huge groups of dudes running at you.
Yeah. And that, it takes away, a throttle that they can push and pull for the pacing. You know, there's just less, again, like fewer things that they can control for, right? When it is just always throwing people at you. Yeah.
To me personally, the thing that is most annoying is the way the inventory system has changed. You know, because you cannot pause and look at your inventory, which is something that's, you know, a real profound pleasure in Resident Evil 4, because you have 2 players, you don't want to make the other person wait for that. Instead, you have a real-time inventory, but it's been simplified as well. Whereas instead of having a briefcase with different items taking up different shapes and amounts of space, you have 9 slots. You can trade items back and forth freely between, and you can use this as kind of a quick select for guns, which is actually an upgrade.
Yeah.
However, I spent way more time managing inventory between these 2 characters than I did in RE4. Like in RE4, I did it for pleasure. You know, to have all my grenades in one corner.
Yep.
And just feel like, hey, that's grenade corner, baby. Like, you know, did you see the signs? Like
the image.
That's what I. And now it's more like, well, if I make Sheva shoot 1 sniper bullet, she can reload her sniper rifle and then she can pick up this red herb. And I can't pick it up because I'm wearing body armor and I need to keep, you know, this extra mine because I'm fighting a bat monster soon.
Yeah. The annoying situation that I found myself in, you know, because there are so many different weapon types, I found it easiest just to say like, okay, Sheva has this rifle and this machine gun. We both have pistols, etc. But in my haste to pick up items when enemies were coming at me, I would pick up a big old useless box of machine gun ammo. And I would have to try to find a way to get it to Sheva, you know, to free up room so I could pick up ammo for my own gun. And if there's anything happening, Sheva will be running away from you to go and deal with the threat. And you have to be within a certain radius to do the swapsies. So just a bunch of what's that?
For a second, that sentence in my head ended with, "And Sheva will run away from you to go deal with her sister." And I don't just like we just pivoted as an entirely different type of game.
Yeah, her sister's in a lot of credit card debt. Like she doesn't have a lot of options. So.
Yeah. She's getting married in 6 months.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, you end up having like, oh, these are Sheva bullets.
Yeah.
You know, and then you end up with this thing where there's like the third category of bullets, like guns that you keep in, you know, your mysterious floating home base. And it's like just for bosses. And it's like, well, I need to take this because I need to take it back to base. But God, this sucks.
Yeah.
You know, there need to be like a send to stash button, I think. Just go all in on it. That's a big part of the inventory as well. They got rid of the merchant. And with that, like tons of just charm and player good feels.
Yeah.
They replaced that with a between level kind of arcadey shop and storage kind of thing where you sell treasures and buy upgrades to your weapons. But it is not as controlled, or it feels more arbitrarily controlled. Like you get to a certain chapter, this certain thing becomes available, or you find it in the level. It becomes available. That never felt as special to me as like running into a merchant and getting that, you know, those 2 blue torches. And feeling the kind of the soft music.
That wonderful moment when you realize, oh, it's been quiet for a minute, and then you're around a corner and you see the blue light. Like that's a pretty good feeling, actually.
It's a great feeling. It felt like possibility. And here you don't get that.
Right.
It's efficient, you know, but it's a huge step backwards in terms of game feel and kind of even efficacy. It's not just an aesthetic thing. It's also how, you know, again, what it feels like. You know, so, and the way that this impacts you, like effort wise, is that this is so easy. The game isn't controlling as tightly when you run into a merchant. Anytime you want, you can restart the chapter and keep all of your stuff.
Yes.
So you basically have the option to go to this whenever you want, as opposed to it being a thing where it feels like part of that designed experience.
Yeah.
You know, we talked about earlier being a little bit reduced.
Yeah. So all of that is done in the name of making co-op more efficient. One thing that is efficient and generous is the way the healing works. I like this. I think that this is uncharacteristic for the genre to a certain extent. So if both characters are near each other, herbs and health sprays will affect both of them. So if you get a moment and you can just be right next to each other, you can get basically double the efficacy on your heal. Of course, that means you are also managing your co-op partner's health. That feels less onerous. However, if you are playing with an AI Sheva, you need to keep all of the healing items yourself, because AI Sheva thinks that herbs grow on trees.
Yeah. And even if they literally do, AI Sheva shouldn't act like they do.
Right.
The semiotics of this are great. It reminds me of like Aerosmith sharing like hairspray on tour or something. Like if you just happen to be near where the spray happens off, a healing wave hits you.
You just get overspray. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Overspray. You get contact high from the spray. I love that.
Yes.
There's also like most multiplayer games like this, there is a way to recover your partner. If they're downed, you're getting a little timer and you can heal them, pick them back up with this. This changes with difficulty.
Yep.
To where on the higher modes, there is no time for this. So they basically get rid of the feature.
Yeah.
But on normal and even just the one above normal, you still have time to get your partner back. If you don't have a healing item to put in them, you inject them with adrenaline, which just gets them a stand, but their health remains critical. And I feel like there is a limit to this. I feel like if they just get downed right away, without healing, at some point they die.
Yeah, when they're downed, they think of it like D&D, where when you hit 0, it starts a countdown to -10. And if you heal them with adrenaline, that just freezes that timer for them. But if they take damage, they go back down. And
that makes sense.
They won't go back up to 0 HP and stop the drain until you actually use a healing item on them. That's at normal. That changes at different places. Yeah. And like that is in addition to just like the help me kind of stuff, where if an enemy gets one of your players in a grab, then the other gets a little prompt to either go up and do a melee or shoot to free them from it.
Yes, because another change in this is that there is a weird and robust melee system to this that really only comes through in mercenary mode, and is not tutorialized very well in the game. But depending on how an enemy is stunned, you will have different melee attacks.
Yep,
you can use, or how the enemy is otherwise predisposed. So depending on how they're holding your partner, and these include instant death.
Right.
You can kill any enemy in the game by getting a certain kind of melee attack. The game does not tell you this at all.
No.
It's hard to pull off. It's much easier to pull off in co-op. When I played this, I played this twice. And when I played it in co-op, I did this much more often. Yeah. It's harder to get the AI to work with it.
Yeah.
But you can do these melee things and literally just one shot. Just about anything.
Yeah. The levels are designed for co-op, in a way that feels pretty reminiscent of RE4 to a certain degree. At least some of the areas where if you had Ashley with you, like you could command her to like turn this crank while you crossed a bridge, etc. This is full of that. I eventually just started calling these partner activities for teams and friends.
Just basically, yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they're literally like, I don't know how anybody gets around this world.
Right.
Like it's the buddy system. Like this is the part of Africa where the buddy system originated. Because even just to cross a river, gotta have to. It's everything is the story of the fox and the fox having to cross the river. Instant death, kind of cute, quick time events in cutscenes return. So you can't just be watching a cutscene.
Yeah, no. You can't just be making a note for your podcast.
Nope. If you don't press, square and X at the same time, let's shoot you in the brain.
Yep.
So, yeah. Big bummer. Gold edition lets you take mitigate some of these and take them down, but they were a bad idea in the first place. And, the idea of like, we need to make cutscenes more, interactive and more thrilling and stuff has always been a weird fiction that video games labor under.
Right. So. When the answer is fewer cutscenes, dummy.
Yeah, exactly. And this has a lot of cutscenes, actually.
Yes.
This game.
Yeah. Story-wise, those cutscenes will tell you a story that is a departure from Resident Evil 4. RE4 was a break in continuity. They dispatch with the Umbrella Corporation in the opening of that. They say, yes, Umbrella was dissolved, but the threat continues. Here's Leon. He is in the Secret Service now. However, RE5 takes us as far back into the continuity as possible. plunging us into the meta story of the struggle between Albert Wesker and the founders of Umbrella, including a founder who was important but heretofore only named, never depicted.
Yeah. Spoiler. It's an old man with a blanket on top of a wheelchair.
Yep.
The way this kind of comes back, I read this somewhere that somebody made the argument that this could have been a series finale. And it actually makes a lot of sense because this is where they close a lot of those threads.
Yes.
Wesker just disappeared after Code Veronica.
Yes.
And, that's fine. That made sense. But there was still, in a way, there was that grudge. And that did feel like a little bit like an unattended plot dangler.
Yes.
In another way, to wrap up that plot, they had to make this real stupid. It's like the lore of this is interesting.
Hey, did they have to? Hey, Gary, did they have to make it stupid?
Well, I think that the idea of Chris is finally going to get vengeance on Wesker was always going to be stupid. There's no way that was going to be cool.
Right.
And it's on the trajectory of Code Veronica, which is when everybody's jumping around like an idiot. And, it's a weird thing where you talk about the tying back into Resident Evil lore. That stuff's really good. The actual plot and theming of this are beyond laughable.
Yes.
For the entire thing. Every message, every, dramatic moment, all of the arc words in TV tropes terms of this, the compare and contrast, what this is basically doing is setting up the idea of Chris getting a new partner and Jill getting a new partner ultimately in the DLC.
Yep.
And then Wesker's bad partner. And the scene where Sheva's like, but I thought they were partners. When Wesker does something evil, I both times my jaw dropped. And I'm like, oh, this is the stupidest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
You're such an idiot, Sheva. you're dumb.
Yeah.
You sweet summer child.
What's really funny about this is we talked about this in Capcom. We talked about this in the Dino Crisis 2 episode earlier this month as well. I think Capcom in particular, I think that there's something about their creative process where they don't understand what a theme is.
Yeah.
Because remember with Dino Crisis, they said our theme was the exhilaration of fighting many dinosaurs. And for this, I think they said something like
the exhilaration of fighting many black people. they had a theme. It's just horrible. It's just for white supremacists.
Yeah.
So.
No, but but I think here the theme was partners in Africa. Which is just that's not a theme, that's a premise. Nope. But they lean on it,
barely a premise.
The fact that they lean on it for a major character beat for Sheva, where she that's what makes her realize that Wesker is a bad guy, that he betrayed somebody, not just somebody but a partner.
It's fully 33% of her character beats as well.
Yes.
She doesn't get a lot of character. Yeah, she doesn't get a lot of character work in this. She has her backstory, and then she has that.
Yes.
And that's basically the story of her. And it's ridiculous. Something I think about a lot in video games is that this was, the best-selling Capcom title or Resident Evil title for quite a while, if it's not still. Somebody cried at that scene, right? Enough where it takes all kinds.
There's so many humans.
He's not a good partner. Albert Wesker, the super speed Matrix vampire from the series, he is a shitty partner.
Yeah, I agree. I can't disagree with you. It's just
and a bad accountant.
Breaking news: water wet. Yeah.
Resident Evil 6. Wesker is a bad friend.
Fake friend Wesker.
Real Weskers for my fake friends. Fake Weskers for my real friends. It's just it's so quaint. He's a bad partner. He's Albert fucking Wesker, you dip.
Yep.
And the game's really going to spend a whole game showing this. To me, holy shit.
Yeah. And what's weird is that's not just a strange little beat that they had for RE5. When RE6, that is all Chris talks about is his squad and his partner, his relationship with peers.
Chris sucks so bad.
He's so bad.
It's a worse Resident Evil character. I didn't think so. In Resident Evil 1, but man.
Yeah.
It fucking sucks. Like we need 2 games to get. This is so remedial. Like I feel like we got assigned remedial games. Like when we play this, like the play and stuff is fun, which it's Resident Evil 4, but worse. And Resident Evil 4 is one of the best video games of all time.
Right.
So like a worse version of it's still very good. But man, is like the theming and story just absolute amateur night at the Dum Dum Factory. Like it's just absolutely incredible shit.
Yeah.
Jaw drops at it.
Yeah, and like for as much as Wesker figures into this, you don't really get an awful lot of him, and his actual plot has basically nothing to do with what's going on in Africa, or like the chaos that you're going through. The thing about the meta story that I do like is I will basically pay attention to any body of text that has the word progenitor virus in it. So like the story of Umbrella coming here and fucking things up to get this flower, I think that is cool and good. But
yeah,
it's only barely related to anything.
And like all the flashback stuff with Wesker and everything, it's like at some point knowing his relationship with Umbrella and how this worked and stuff is good. His motivations are really dumb.
Yes.
And it's one of those things where, we talk about if the characters are standing around criticizing the plot, it doesn't excuse anything. This game is full of that.
Yes.
Of Chris calling out Wesker for having shallow comic book villain like motivations, but then also just being like, yeah, Wesker, but this made Wesker like real idiot too. Like Wesker doesn't have good motivations.
Nope.
He wants total global saturation, and that's it. Like, his wheat from the chaff supervillain shit. It's like Thanos if Thanos was just like, what if everybody died? And like people he'd be like, there wouldn't be, there wouldn't be scarcity anymore. And we're like, we know Wesker, there wouldn't be scarcity because there would be people, buddy. Like, come on.
No, but to have Wesker's motivation ultimately come down to I want to be a Nietzschean Superman is like, I don't know. That's real basic, you guys. That's been done.
16-bit JRPG did you borrow this from?
Yes. Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that as a trope in general, but it's not Resident Evil. No. Like this is dark science. This is people pursuing knowledge and doing crimes, not pursuing power the same way. And every time somebody makes that trade and chooses power, it's shown as a tragedy, including this game. Like every single time it happens, it's like, oh, somebody turned into a big insane mutant and died. That sucks. It feels off to me. This is the most off feeling Resident Evil game in sequence. To me, where it's just like the concerns that we're dealing with and kind of the motivations and storylines we're dealing with do not feel like the series to me.
No. I would say RE6 does feel like the series to me. Like it is
definitely more so.
Yeah, it is globe trotty and stuff like that. But like the character motivations are way more in line and more like nuanced, which is a crazy thing to say about a game as extra as RE6 is.
Yeah. It says a lot about RE5.
Yeah.
Let's get into the racist stuff.
Yeah. So if you know RE5 for anything, you either know, oh yeah, it's the one where they went co-op, or you know it as the racist Resident Evil. And for me, like this was my first big video games are racist controversy. I don't know if it was like the first one, but like reams and reams have been written in response to the specific bad ways in which Capcom messed this up by people who know more about this than us. What I focused on was like talking about how Capcom responded to this and still ultimately came out with like a bullshit product from this regard.
Yeah, that's the important thing to me. Like nobody needs to hear these two white guys talk about how Resident Evil 5 was harmful.
Right.
Because other people with more skin in the game have done so.
Yes.
What's important though is that Capcom, like this is one of those things where like they just did a really bad job and they attempted to fix it, but the end product is still pretty gross.
Yeah.
And it would be disingenuous not to mention it. Like even just because, it's in some ways it's not our race. In another way, like it absolutely is, because even as like just a white dude playing this, like I felt grody during lots of parts of it, both times I played it. And that's not marketing. That's the hands-on experience.
Yes.
And it's one of those things too, where the conversation around this gets so wrapped up in intent in a way that is not useful.
Yep.
Like it's the best and worst thing you can say about this, like, I legitimately do not think the people at Capcom set out to make a racist game. I think that they made a really insensitive game and were very careless with imagery and things without really, knowing the gravity of it.
Right. I feel like they had things that they liked, and they went to they went to certain sources for ideas. They said, okay, we want to tell a story that takes place here. And they went to an awful lot of media that itself just stepped on as many rakes as possible, and they didn't listen or bring somebody on board to say, like, hey, that's like, this is why that thing is bad.
Yeah, this sucks.
Yeah. Like,
they invented new rakes as well. Like, it's not just like they borrowed rakes from Mediaset here.
Yes.
Like, there are brand new rakes in this. Like there's a jaw-dropping lore note in this. So, again, we're not excusing any of this when we talk about Capcom's reaction to it. Like, when we say, I don't think they intended to be racist, we're not saying that matters.
Right.
Really. It's just like, yeah, the product itself is it's kind of gross in that respect. And you can get over it. And you can, if you're hearing that and you're like, I enjoy this game, I don't feel like it's racist. I just feel like it's set in Africa. Like, when we run into explicitly racist things in it, we'll point those out, and it's okay for you still to like the game. We're not saying any, and that's where like this was so exhausting. Yeah. When this came out, like, God, like, people just be like, well, it's not just racist just to have a black person. Like, is a black zombie racist? And like, no, like, you're willfully misunderstanding this.
Look at the way the white zombies are portrayed previously, and look at the way they decided to do it here. Look at, just there are any number of ways that they specifically messed it up.
Yeah. So, so they did the first trailer for this in 2007, showed Chris just gunning down a bunch of black people in an African setting. That's like basically it. There wasn't a lot more to it. They're like, this will be enough. Here's our game.
Money, please.
Money, please. Ding, 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 ding. And Capcom, people criticize this because this sucked. And Capcom said, our intention wasn't to be political or to make a statement. And it's like, well, not everything things aren't neutral because you say they're neutral.
Yes. Yeah. So they eased up somewhat. They added in enemies of other races, just kind of making it the idea that, like, just poor people of any race end up living here and working in horrible conditions. Yeah.
Like, anybody could win in this club stadium, like
equal opportunity murder commission. Yeah. So they did that. It's also believed that the addition of Sheva as a co-op partner was also a measure to soften this, to mitigate this. However, that also has problems. You are still killing straight up racist caricatures of black people,
and they get more racist as it goes.
Yes. Additionally, there were complaints that Sheva, her skin was too light, and she didn't sound like she was from Africa. Like, she did not appear to be like from the place where they said she was from. And like messing with
the 35-page document says that she was, but that's real classic. Like, well, no, in the lore she's 1,000 years old.
Yeah. What ultimately ended up happening was they ended up saying this skin, this lighter skin tone is better than these darker ones. Good guy, light skin, bad guy, darker skin. To an outsider, like, it took me, like, I didn't initially intuit like skin shade privilege. In terms of people of color. Like, I didn't really understand it, and I just kind of had to like learn about it. Yeah. And the other rake they stepped on with this was by trying to paper over that by making like this weird fan servicey sex kitten character. Like, she's not very flirty, right? But like, boy, does the camera really like her boobs and butt. Yep. And she's very scantily clad. And yes, it's Africa, but Chris isn't. Like, yes, it's hot, but Chris isn't scantily clad. Right. Like, it's like this weird thing where they said, like, okay, well, this will make us not racist, but like, we need something for daddy. Right. If daddy can't have his MAGA hat, he's going to have his nudie mag. Like, it was really dumb. Yes. Yeah. You can look at one thing that the developer has said, even separate from the discussion of their depiction of race in this, that actually points to probably where a good amount of this came from, which is that the director cited Black Hawk Down as a big inspiration for the film. And while that movie is stressful and suspenseful, it's a Jerry Bruckheimer movie set in Africa based on basically a propagandistic book. It's very inaccurate about the events that it depicts. There's been tons of criticism of that film in particular that kind of does the same thing that RE5 does, depicts the people involved in that conflict or the people who lived in Mogadishu as monstrous and animalistic. And yeah, this takes that and basically does a similar thing. So yeah, that's another one of those instances. Don't base your depiction of Africa on Black Hawk Down, probably.
Just base it on the continent.
Yep.
Which already exists.
Lots of people are from there. You can talk to them. it's fine.
Yeah. So the final game, they had all these kind of mitigating factors, but it came out pretty bad. The text is, these people are victims, and that was a big thing that they tried to go for. These poor people, these rural people in Africa were being fucked over by Umbrella.
Yep.
The same as ever. However, there not only is there cultural baggage to the idea of the absolutely, the wild, out of control black guy menacing light-skinned women, which is like something that explicitly happens in this during a cutscene. But also, it's not like how they show white zombies or even Plagas. Like the decision to make this the fast zombie game on top of it making it the black zombie game goes over pretty bad.
Right.
And then you go to a village full of witch doctors. Like they just, it's already pretty bad. And then you just like fucking slap my head, man.
And then
like,
Warpaint comes out. I'm not being edgy when I say this. I'm actually being deadly serious about the decision they made. They made with this through the middle portion of this game. You're fighting black people in war paint who are throwing spears at you. Some of them wearing gigantic masks. It's like something out of Tintin.
It's very Tintin.
Yeah.
It's like Tintin goes to Costco World Market. The book.
Yeah. And like that, like just it even back in the day, that was massively uncomfortable for me. Back in the day being 2009, like generally before I started learning about like how this stuff sucked. I didn't learn about these tropes or even like that colonialism sucked until after college. Like nobody teaches that unless you seek it out.
Yeah. So it's rough shit.
Yes.
We're going to cover this, that's our opinion on this controversy bit. We're going to cover this largely as a game, but I would strongly encourage anybody listening to, Google Resident Evil 5 race and read some essays, because there's a bunch of good stuff out there with people who are more informed than we are.
Yeah, both contemporaneously and, written after the fact. And also this is part of a long tradition of just basically Western fiction not handling Africa well at all. Mangling geography, treating it as if it is a single country, like talking about, but what does this mean for Africa? Like, I don't know, dog. It's a continent that's big enough to fit most other countries in it. So
yeah. Yep. Like the language is a specific language. It's Swahili during a part of this. The money is a money from another part of Africa. There is an element of this where Capcom were taking the buffet of imagery here and just being like, we like this aesthetically, without really taking into account, and game developers do that, right? Like there are tombstones in Dark Souls 3 that have Urdu on them.
Yes.
Like that are there as placeholder images. But this is so pointed and so, this part of this is the 2020 moment we're covering this. But even when it came out, like this is so laser focused on a specific race that a large part of the market for this game very specifically has a pretty shitty history with.
Yes.
So yeah, misguided all around.
So yeah, there's that. Let's talk about the development. So the game was announced very shortly after RE4 came out. RE4 came out in early 2005, and this was announced in July of 2005 that they were working on it. This is directed by Jun Takeuchi, who had previously done Onimusha Warlords.
Yep. After Clover, the studio closed down. The remaining members of that team split between this and Umbrella Chronicles, the light gun shooter game, which is pretty fun.
Yep.
This game began development as just a solo adventure starring Chris.
Right.
And a lot of the things were in place. Like, this is not like RE4 where there's a million drafts. The story was a little bit different, and it was a solo game, but it was always a daylight adventure with Chris in Africa.
Right.
You know, Sheva was originally a recurring character. You know, think like a Ada Wong, perhaps.
Yeah,
if I had to guess, like, you know, a character we switched to for a little bit. She was the leader of a local militia, but then when they went co-op, they're like, "Hey, this will shut up the SJWs." You know?
Hey, also they invented the term SJWs.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like, it was Capcom all along.
Yeah. And like other characters had like different uses. So like Excella wasn't always the president of the Tricell like regional branch. She was like a secretary. Irving's role was different. All of that.
Yeah.
But you know, broadly it was there because they had RE4 to build off of. Like they already knew how to make a good game. They had the bones. Yes. Pretty much the entire game takes place during daylight. And this is because of, you know, the inspiration, you know, and it just is saying like, yes, this is based on, you know, like this is inspired by Black Hawk Down. That movie is mostly in the bright daylight. But also like graphics technology was to the point where they could make stuff look good if it was fully lit up. So, you know, they said, why not go for it? And it's fine. Yeah.
Well, and the idea, I think, is a little bit daring. You know, we're at the fifth, you know, main entry in this, the sixth main game. You know, all of them had taken place in Spooky Night.
Yes.
You know, for the most part, other than a brief daylight section in RE4, like, let's see what this looks like.
Yeah.
You know, it turns out things are not as scary during the day.
Yep.
You know, daylight horror can be done very effectively. This is the least scary Resident Evil game we've done. By far. I don't think that it's particularly possible to feel fear during this.
You just feel stressed out because the combat is hectic. Yeah. But, you know.
Yeah. But not, you know, this is like unconventional fear month.
Yes.
You know, but originally they were going to do a lot more with that, where they talked about having this lighting, and they had this whole mechanic about eyes adjustment. So the idea being when you went into a dark area from a light area or vice versa, your eyes and the camera would take a while to adjust, and they were going to use this for scares.
Yes.
I can't imagine what that is other than just letting something get too close to you before you can see it.
Yep.
You know, and eventually they just stopped doing it. Like they just cut that completely.
Yeah.
And it ends up playing like a little bit like RE4 in, you know, an insurgent zone.
Yeah.
Like a Call of Duty insurgent zone during the Call of Duty insurgent day. You know? So.
Yeah. So this is where they, you know, make a bold step toward action, right?
Yes.
There's not much survival horror to this. And speaking of action, they have a mercenaries mode in this that is good and fun. You can play as a ton of different characters, including Barry.
Barry was originally going to be in the campaign.
Yes.
One of the cutscenes from this was Barry joining you to fight 10 gigantes. So it wasn't like originally it was going to be a little bit spookier and creepier, really.
Yep.
There were still going to be 10 gigantes, but Barry was going to help.
Yep.
There's versus multiplayer, which I have not messed with. That's a weird idea.
Yeah, it feels like 2009 was the banner year for that.
Yeah, just had to be. And there are two pieces of DLC for this that are very strange. We'll talk about them at the end of the episode. One of which is a prequel, and one of which is like could have been done in a cutscene.
Yes.
Like one of which is a side story that answers a question that you probably didn't have.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. One of which is more RE5, and the other one is like a different gameplay thing altogether, which is, you know.
That's the good one. It's a love letter to the series, which is a nice little, you know, bone, since this game does not feel like it has very much, you know, love for the series in it.
Yeah. You get both of those DLCs if you get the gold edition. It was collected on its original systems in that, and also that is how it's re-released. I played this on the Switch, which is a good way to do that. Switch is a good system for these. But you can also get it on like PC and PS4 and stuff like that.
This was followed by Resident Evil 6, which is another co-op game, much bigger in scope, much longer. And Resident Evil Revelations, which is a side story, tells kind of a prequel story of Chris and Jill working together, and a little bit of like the background on the BSAA.
Yes.
You know, which here just kind of comes fully formed.
Right. Yeah, BSAA, like they just, all of these organizations after RE4 that they just start introducing in the animated movies in between in between the mainline games
that you haven't and shouldn't watch.
Right. Don't.
Like it's so, I mean, we talked about this when we did RE0 for Abject Suffering, but like there is an element of Resident Evil that loses me post Umbrella.
Yep.
And this is part of it. Like it is so much harder to care about the BSAA, you know, than Stars and Umbrella. Like it used to be simple. And I think part of the thing is that they're functionally the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like BSAA is just Stars, but less cool.
There's a moment in this where the story beat might as well have been a Scooby-Doo. Like Sheva walks up to a Tricell logo and notices that like it's peeling a little bit and peels it off, and underneath it is Umbrella. Like Tricell is Umbrella.
Yeah. Listen, Sheva. Any evil pharmaceutical company is functionally the same.
Yes.
In this universe. So yeah, so it definitely loses me in that. And this has been a negative intro. I think this game is really fun to play. You know, and we mentioned it before, it's because it's a worse version of RE4, and RE4 is a blast.
Yeah.
So like I had a really good time both times I played this. You know, we talked about co-op and we talked about the downsides of it, I think, because we both played this most recently solo. It is very fun to play Resident Evil co-op. It works really well. Like those absolutely, you know, amazing little defense sections where you're doing traps and things like that, just sing in co-op. Like telling a buddy over a mic, like, hey, you cover this window, I gotta go get more ammo upstairs. Yeah. Like, and coordinating for that is just like thrilling and cool. You know, they had something there. Yeah. You know, I don't know that they've ever fully capitalized on it. Like 6 is a fun co-op experience, and good, but I think it's a little sprawling. And then the Revelation games make co-op a pain because you had to beat the levels solo before you can do them co-op, which is a crime that I wish games would never commit again.
Yes. Stop that.
There's still like full potential of this that could be reached. You know, wasn't reached in Outbreak. Like Resident Evil is like spiraling towards perfect co-op play. Yeah. And I still think they can get there. And this, as a first step, is still like an absolute blast, even if there's tons of missed potential. Yep.
I've not played through the whole game as co-op. Like when I first played this, I did like a smattering of chapters. And that speaks to the game's credit that somebody can just like hop in. Like you don't have to start and play from the beginning. It can just be like, oh, I'm at this point. Do you want to hop in? And they can just, you know, come along. So
yeah. Be my Sheva.
Yeah. Be my Sheva, baby.
Yeah. Yeah, let's get into it.
Yep. So we have our opening here. We have this figure in a black robe and a strange mask approaching a frightened man as we intercut between this scene and a Jeep rolling across the savannah with Chris narrating about how Umbrella was dissolved and their weapons ended up in the hands of terrorists. So this is the Metal Gear Solid 2 moment.
Yes. Yeah. And the strange mask is very reminiscent of a Plague Doctor mask.
Yes.
Like it, you know, pretty evocative. The Global Pharmaceutical Consortium formed the BSAA to stop these terrorist hotspots. Basically, that's real weird. The idea of like Pfizer, being like, "There's dark aspirin out there, go get it." Like, Chris arrives in the city and meets Sheva, who's his new partner. At the mention of the partner, because that's going to be the theme of this game, he has a flashback. PTSD flashback about losing a partner, which we'll find out more about that through the game. He waves it off. Sheva's like, "What's wrong?" He's like, "Nothing."
He can't hear the word partner without going into full-on Denang flashback. Like,
yeah, he's the Manchurian beef. He's Manchurian. Like, you've heard of Mongolian beef. He's Manchurian beef. If you say partner, Chris goes into a blue screen.
Yes. Then we also have a sinister man watching from an alleyway. He doesn't really factor in. It's just an excuse to have a menacing black man looking at our main characters.
As if we need an excuse. So level 1 is civilian checkpoint here, and this is good. I love the way this game opens. Actually,
oh yeah,
right. Like this is a weird thing where it's like, so you walk along towards the street to go into this butcher shop to meet our informant, but on the way there, like this is a really really creepy spot. Like I understand that I shouldn't be creeped out by a poor African village, but like there's a bunch of guys standing around beating something in a sack.
Yeah.
And go back to the Resident Evil 4 episode where there were some things in just sacks.
Yep.
They were moving around, and how that's a very evocative sack-related idea for me. The way everybody side-eyes you and they're just like beating a sack. There's a part where they chase a guy down an alley and you can chase them, you can follow them.
Yeah.
And they go inside a house. You can't go in there with them. But this does do a really good like creepy "you're not welcome in town" Innsmouth kind of feel to this.
Which is on one hand, it sounds like it is similar to the approach that you make in RE4. This is different. Like you're going through and you're like talking with people, instead of walking into the edge of this village and like maybe seeing a creepy shack before you get to the point where they're crucifying bodies in the village when the game really starts. Here, like you're walking along in the street and just basically getting a sense of menace that like is coming off of these people saying, "Hey, you don't belong here. Something is bad."
There's something universal about like just feeling unwelcome in a space. When we get to our arms dealer at the end, he asks what we know about something called Ouroboros. He talks about Doomsday, and he gives you our weapons. He opens up a little case and you can pick up your gun and knife.
Yeah. And we walk in as we roll along on some infected jamming a ball of parasite down some poor guy's throat. And like the people who did this, they run off. But the guy that they do this to, he gets up and attacks us. This is showing that like things are different here compared to an RE4, where the Plagas had to be injected and then maybe hatch later on. Here, it takes place instantly, as long as you can get this thing in somebody's mouth.
Yeah. And the one who's doing it has like a gross flower mouth.
Yes.
Like he has, tentacles coming out of his mouth. So this is our first little bit of combat. As we leave here, a bunch of infected kind of storm us. We're meant to run. If you kill all these guys, which you can do on New Game Plus really easily, which when I revisited this for this episode, I did, you get a cool treasure. You get a valuable treasure for sequence breaking. I love it when games reward you for doing something that would be difficult. But you retreat into a house, and inside every village here, there's like miscellaneous meat being butchered by like a medieval instrument.
Yep.
It feels like, and this room is no different because there are butchered people and a huge, comically large mega axe.
Yeah. We're going to see what wields this here in the next little action section here, but it's just very funny to see the cuts of meat and then this gigantic thing. Like, how hard would it be to do like a precise cut with this? There has to be a better tool.
Like chopping an onion,
with
it, like 6 men, holding it at the sides.
Oh, geez. But by passing through these alleys in this building, so we reach a public square where we watch an executioner who is just riddled with these spikes execute a man in a turban. This is our informant who is talking about Ouroboros and stuff. Sheva recognizes them, and then the infected rush out to attack us, and we get RE5's version of the village storming from RE4. Yes.
Yeah. And just the degree to which this repeats Resident Evil 4's tricks and early on is pretty eye-rolly. Like, this is a really fun sequence. You can fortify this little room, but they eventually will break in even through unexpected areas. Like, they'll bust through the ceiling. That's really cool. And there's kind of a timer. If you've been holding people off, eventually the executioner comes, similar to RE4. Instead of a chainsaw guy, it's the executioner. That's what we have now. There will also be chainsaw guys.
Yes.
But this guy kills you in one hit or downs you in one hit. You don't have to kill him. If you do, you get a treasure. It's all very standard.
Yes.
As you kind of run around this village, killing time until a chopper comes and blows open the gate to go to the next area. This will sound like a nitpick, but it's a big downgrade, I think, in Resident Evil 4. all of the ammo and treasure in this area disappear after the cutscene.
Yep.
You do not get the I'm sweeping the area that got cleared for goodies feeling, which is an incredible feeling that I missed very much.
Yes. It's like shopping, Christmas Day.
Yep.
Yeah.
And what it led to was the very ridiculous and artificial behavior of me running around avoiding fighting, making sure I picked up all the stuff.
We don't want to miss it
in the village. Yeah, I don't want to miss it. Like it's a game about conserving ammo in a lot of ways. I want all that. Yeah, all those goodies. So that was really dumb. But eventually, a chopper comes and blows the way out, so you can get out.
Yes, taking us to 1-2, the public assembly. Again, we are going through these alleys here. This is where we get to kind of our first, like, hey, let's split up partner kind of moments. Chris, because he is made out of polished mahogany, or what's a whiter way than that? Polished oak, let's say, polished birch. He cannot climb. These broken ladders. He has to launch Sheva up into orbit.
Throw Sheva up into
throw Sheva like a javelin.
Launch me, dragon. Yeah. So this is some asymmetrical play if you're playing co-op, which is really cool. Or if you play a New Game Plus and you choose to play as Sheva.
Yeah.
You can go and do these parts that are bespoke content.
Yeah.
That only Sheva can get to because she is a spear. So she gets hoisted up. As we're doing this, we hear this radio chatter of other BSAA agents being pinned down and killed.
Yes.
So things are bad. We're going to go help them. As we do, though, we see a young blonde white woman struggling and screaming for help as she's being beset by crowds of crazed black dudes.
Yeah.
It's not great.
No.
Like whenever anybody says like, oh, it's just Africa. The imagery in this is unmistakable and gross.
Having her specifically be a waifish, pale white, blonde woman feels like a specific kind of choice that anybody with a critical eye would say, I don't know, man.
Yeah.
Maybe go with your second choice on that one. But
yeah.
But we're going to be trying to help her, but she's going to get turned, of course. If you picked up a key earlier, you can go in and get your first shotgun. This is where I started the separation of weapons between Chris and Sheva. I like using shotguns in these games, so Chris got it. Yeah.
And there's some gamesmanship you can do with that because your AR partner has generally really great accuracy. So Sheva makes a great sniper.
Yes.
Giving her a sniper rifle, she does miss. Like there is an AI to it, but she's way less likely to miss.
Yeah.
And they never miss QTEs. So there are certain things where you have to shoot a specific part. And letting your partner have a good weapon for that means easy times.
Yes.
When you eventually reach this young woman, she turns. I think these are the cephaloes. Is what she turns into.
I think so.
It's basically the Plagueis head. Things, but a little tougher.
Yeah.
And it whips around. It real Resident Evil 4.
It's like a big pillar of quivering flesh as opposed to being like tentacles that lash around.
Yeah.
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 As we proceed further, we find out that Alpha Team has been wiped out.
Yes. And we, Irving got away, who the arms dealer guy told us about. We're going to spend a lot of time on Irving. Don't worry.
Yep.
But right now, when we don't know who Irving is or what he is probably Irving's best time.
Right.
Where it's like, oh shit, I've heard of Irving.
I know Irving by his works as opposed to his accents.
Yes. As opposed to his weird McPoyle features. Yeah. So this operation that we were sent on to go get him, it seems like it was a setup.
Yeah.
As we get there. And, the Alpha Team guy gives us a disk of data here. Alpha Team has been wiped out. They've been killed, or largely killed. But we do get this disk of data from the corpse and analyze this in this little storage room.
So as that is going, we go down to a basement and we find a troop's body with a key near this kind of a strange blast furnace. When we go to get this, a large monster from the RE0 collection. It is kind of made of these writhing black leech-like worms. It's huge. Kind of chases us into this furnace room for our first boss fight that is designed specifically for co-op.
Yes. Pretty basic game stuff. Like it's really good of this guy to fight you in a blast furnace.
Yeah, very nice of him.
Yeah. We stun him by dislodging these gas tanks to do damage, and the idea is we want to stun him either with a grenade or with bullets when he's in the furnace and have our partner activate it.
Yeah.
This is difficult still, though.
It is, yeah.
This doesn't work that well with AI.
Nope.
But you can manage it.
Yeah, you can. They're like, there's no remote activation button. Like, you can't say activate it now. You just kind of have to hope that they get it.
There's a big delay too.
Yeah,
like when they, even when you hit it, like you have to time it. The doors come.
The doors have to, close very slowly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep. But it's a nice little proof of concept. Like when I played this, I was like, oh yeah, co-op boss design. That must have been hard. Mm-hmm. They make it look hard.
Yes.
But yes, right after this, we get to a garage right as Irving is, driving off, again, with this cloaked masked figure that we have seen before. So they are in cahoots.
Yep. Mission command says like, hey, proceed with the chase. You can say, are you serious?
Yeah. Have you seen what happens when people chase this guy?
Yeah. And they're like, no, the mission continues. We have dispatched Delta to help you out. Irving is heading towards the mines. Follow him.
Yeah.
And Chris goes, ever get the feeling you're expendable? and Sheva says nothing about this.
Right.
And the mission control wants to do this because they need the combat data.
Yeah. It's the only reason they get out of bed in the morning.
Yeah.
Somebody say data.
Which hand Irving like scratches his balls with. Like the Irving combat data we need to get.
ICD, yeah. Of course.
Okay. We go into 2-1, stage 2-1, the storage facility, evocatively named. And this is, again, they're just repeating RE4 tricks really quick. Like we find a submachine gun, which I ended up giving to Sheva just so she could have like a sidearm thing, even though I wish that I had it because I aim for feet. And as we go and cross through this bridge, here we go through a container yard, which has dog enemies and obese Magini guys who are heavier, take more punishment. But as we cross a bridge, a truck barrels down on us and we have to shoot it.
Yes.
Again, just directly from the RE4 collection.
Yeah. Blow up the truck before he hits you.
Yep.
Don't worry if you die. It'll start you right when this cutscene begins, because this isn't really the game. Yeah. Yeah. And beyond this, we kind of end up in this little sewer canal. We find some bodies that turn into flying Plagas. Goddamn, this engine is not made for flying enemies.
But they still do it.
Yep. So much.
Yeah. These aren't great. Luckily, they're fragile.
Yeah.
But they're not great. I ended up letting my AI partner snipe them a lot. There's an interesting quirk of the AI in this where the AI will choose its weapon based on ammo. Right. Not weapon type. So if you want, I basically wanted Sheva to always be sniping. Yeah. When she wasn't doing, we weren't just fighting rank and file zombies. And if I had a problem with a part, I would take away everything she had other than the sniper rifle. Because she'll never favor that. Yes. Unless something is very, very far away.
You also have a limited amount of control over their tactics. Like there's either attack or cover, and that will affect things as well. Yeah.
Yeah. And get over here. Help. Like whenever the two of you need to kick down a door.
Yes.
So we get down to this marina. I really like this feels very lived in to me. This is a great little stage. Yeah. These little shop carts and stuff. And it's eerily empty until we shoot a key down from a body on a hook. And this causes a bunch of wave enemies. And we are in the second, wave-based defense of a village in 15 minutes.
Probably.
Something like that. Something ridiculous. 20 minutes. Like it's pretty silly.
Yeah. But we have a huge bunch of these enemies, and we get over the radio. This chopper pilot, aka future dead man named Kirk, says like, "Hey, I'll get there and help you." So we have to go and meet him halfway.
Yep. So we approach this residential area, but the flying Plagas down Kirk's chopper.
Kirk,
yeah, Kirk, the Mike's brother. Command says get to the crash site. So we get to this first section where we're covering our partner, which is again a co-op section. Yeah. She goes into a building across the way, and we have to cover her. Right. In that, and depending on which player you're playing, you get a different experience.
This is fun. This is one section that I did do co-op with somebody back in the day.
Yeah, these are great. And this introduced our second mini boss, Magina, the chainsaw. Yeah. Magina, who, as opposed to the one in RE4, which is a big bulky boy, this is a lanky lad.
Yes, and commensurately much quicker.
Yes.
It feels like the instant kill radius on him is wider in comparison. It feels like you don't have to be as close to him before he procs his I'm going to chop your head off kind of move.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is a long encounter. He gets a lot of backup. Enemies can kind of just climb over these walls, these makeshift walls to get you. And you have to kill him before you can get the key to leave.
Yes.
Luckily, this is the exploding barrel district. So you can bait him into walking next to a lot of those.
Yes. Yeah. So we get to the crash site, and we find that the Magini have actually found Kirk's dead body and laid it atop a tire pyre.
Mm-hmm. How I want to go. And then a very funny scene happens where the Magini motorcycle gang jump over, like do wicked, ollies over the walls.
They do wicked jumps and circle us
with chains.
Yep.
Like a 50s gang, might. And this is full of us being cool badasses and shooting things in the air.
Yeah.
And eventually Delta Team shows up and rescues us with sniper rifles. And this whole thing is like directed by a sniper rifle, written by a sniper rifle. Like the idea behind this is that this is the coolest shit we've ever seen. And we are firmly back in the second half of RE4 Code Veronica land.
Yes.
In this shit.
I would say early. Like the specifically the motorcycle stuff, and this in particular feels even goofier than latter RE4 and Code Veronica. This feels like it's something that was like pulled from a draft of a script from the RE movies to me.
Man, I'm glad you brought that up. I had something I was going to say about that when I was going into this episode, is that this whole plot feels like an RE movie.
Yes.
Like this is the game on which we cross the lake over to the movie verse, it feels like. And this totally feels like it's from like Nemesis or some shit.
Yeah.
I don't know that I agree that it's dumber than RE4 because RE4 had a gigantic robotic Napoleon that you
a different flavor of dumb. I would say that is a more preferable flavor of dumb than this to me.
That's dumb. This is dumb also, but badass.
This is dumb, but it thinks it's cool, and that is worse.
Yeah, extremely cool.
Oh, geez.
Josh is solid though, and he's got that good Afrikaner accent, which I love. Pleasant accent. Again, we've talked about that in other things too. I don't know if that's problematic to like an accent. I do like it.
Yeah. It is weird because Josh is voiced by a white guy. So
yeah, it's just a nice accent though.
Yeah. But yeah, rescues us with his sniper rifles. And he gives us this memory card saying, hey, there's some data on here. Chris pops it into his little PDA and looks through it and notices a picture of Jill Valentine.
Yep. Who, for people who don't know, was once a partner. So this sends Chris.
My hair standing on end.
Like when anybody walks over your grave or says the word partner. So this gives him a PTSD flashback of a mansion and seeing Jill die.
Right.
This hasn't happened in a game.
No.
They decided to make this be a DLC and cutscenes. It's real weird. Because during the first time I played this, I only played the DLC this year.
Yeah.
And I was just like, man, I wanted to play that game.
Yeah.
That seems pretty cool.
That looks pretty great. I mean, it also has the effect of having an important character who a lot of people like die off screen.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not handled super well.
Right.
But this is basically your motivation why it's going to be the two of you versus an entire nation.
Yeah.
Because you have to get to the bottom of the Jill mystery.
Right. Yeah. So we get to 2-2, which is the train station. And we start out in a rail yard just full of dogs. So many dogs.
These are the worst dogs in the series.
I hate it. It's really bad.
Yeah. Like this is a series of bad dogs. These are the worst dogs.
Well, it's especially bad here because they can run underneath the box cars.
Yeah, yeah, and they're spry. They dodge. Like every time I play this, I end up getting on a rail car and shooting down at them.
Yes,
they stun you. They like stun lock you. Mm-hmm. Like the dogs in Resident Evil 5 just absolutely suck. They are full of pogus. They're not just
dogs.
Yeah. So we get through this rail yard that takes forever. There's also traps here, which again just feels like, we're in the Resident Evil 4 collection.
Yeah.
Like here's a series of hallways with exploding mines. When we get to the non-exploding mines, we get this segment, this Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles shit, where one partner has to hold a lantern to shine on the target so the other person can shoot.
Yeah.
This is fine.
Yep.
This is fine.
Yeah. Fine is what I would say. It's inventive. Like when I played this initially, I was like, oh, that's actually like a really good that's a good, it was novel at the time, I guess.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you're playing the solo, I chose to shine the light because my partner wouldn't miss
Yes.
as much.
Same.
And it worked just fine. Like I got through it.
Yeah.
It was fun co-op.
Yep.
So.
Yeah. You escape the mine by climbing up this big dig site amid a bunch of enemies, trying to stop you from getting into an elevator. Mm-hmm. And when you get up that elevator, this is where you find Irving, baby.
Yep. And let's camp out on Irving for a minute.
Yeah.
How did you? I got a Lovecraftian sense of dread when I found out that this character model and mocap and facial model was based on the voice actor. Did you know that?
I mean, they've done that before. Like they did that with Sheva, right? Like,
yeah.
The actress who plays Sheva got the role because she used to be a circus acrobat. I guess I haven't seen. I'm afraid to look it up because it might disrupt
Alan
the
Groves?
recording.
Yeah, I'm looking at him now.
Okay.
He doesn't look as like what it feels like is that they drew a like carnival caricature of this guy.
Yeah.
And then decided to just like make him in the game. Like how ugly and grotesque can we draw you? And then like he looks like in real life he looks like the middle-aged man who lives with his dad in the Tim and Eric song.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
He's got that weird look to him. Uh-huh. In the game though, he's this like weird, like heavy-lidded McPoyle who is constantly like he never walks anywhere. He kind of shuffles shoulder first.
So like this is
like
very this is very obviously Salazar. Like they wanted to reheat some of that Salazar heat that they had before, right? Like he's a short guy who primarily communicates by cackling, and like he doesn't seem to bend at the knees.
He's way worse than Salazar.
Oh, 100%.
I cannot get over how different and how much worse this is than Salazar.
Mom, I want Salazar. We have Salazar at home, honey. The Salazar at home is Irving.
Exactly. I want to go to Olive Garden to get unlimited breadsticks, soup, and Salazar. So like in his voice is like this. I'm like it's like
a real New York slice.
It's like Captain America's little friend.
Yeah.
It's like Bucky before the war.
Yeah.
Is kind of, or like one of the Yancey Street Boys, like in a Brooklyn movie where like one of the guys is learning about what it means to be a good fella and he flashes back to his childhood. This is like his little buddy.
Oh, God.
And like we're gonna make it to California someday.
Exactly. Yeah. That's all right, Mr. S.
Yeah, that's okay, Mr. Redfield. It's like the male version of like the like Harley Quinn voice almost.
Little bit, yeah. Like it's specifically like a Bowery Boy kind of thing.
Yeah. It is grotesque and it fills me with disgust.
Mm-hmm.
I hate this character.
Yep, with a passion.
I have no fun.
Nope.
With Irving. And I think that if this is what we have instead of Salazar, then we lost a war.
He is like the primary threat until the beginning of the third act. Like you spend so much of this game chasing him down.
And it's so weird to have all these characters talk about Irving like he's like big man on campus.
Yeah.
And I just want to be like, oh, that guy? Like we've seen him before this in like brief cutscenes.
Yeah. Yeah.
This like first full dose of Irving is a real shock to the system.
Yeah. So and his characterization, like we're after him because he's supposedly like this terrorist arms dealer, like Plagas Lord, right? Like the BSAA wants him because he has been basically seeding all of these warlords with Plagas, and that is not a good thing. We find out he's part of a broader conspiracy that ultimately goes up to Wesker and Umbrella, or what remains of Umbrella, rather. But like, it's a big mismatch, let's say.
Yeah, it doesn't. And his dialogue is dumb. Mm-hmm. Like when you get here, you get into like a Mexican standoff.
Yes.
And you're like, put down the gun. And then he's like, why don't you put down your gun?
Yeah.
It's like,
that is the basics. That is the agreement that we're under.
So yep. Are you one of the fucking weasels from Roger Rabbit? Like, why is this happening? Like, and luckily this moment before you can summarily execute this twerp, unluckily the robed stranger throws a gas grenade in and rescues Irving.
Yeah.
So
yeah. He lives to grovel another day or just cackle or something. I don't know.
Whatever he does. Yeah.
Really bad.
Yeah. We investigate his room where he was, and we find some documents that he was trying to destroy, and it mentions something about a test case happening in an oil field in some marshlands. So we have to head there.
Yes. And this brings us to another kind of co-op section where we're going up this cliffside path, dealing with a bunch of enemies. First, taking out some people who are manning machine guns that are mounted, and then eventually you can use those yourself. Finding good. Again, co-op play troops kind of stuff.
Yeah. At the end of this, we get our second boss fight. A huge truck kind of careens at us and is tipped over. And this like bat creature, this like big, bat grub thing gets released. This is also where they introduce the proximity mines.
Yeah. Or as I call them, inventory chaff.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, chips you can exchange for money.
Yep.
Between levels. And this is Resident Evil 5 has significantly worse boss fights than Resident Evil 4. Every boss is like a big glowing weak spot monster. This guy's whole thing is that he crawls around on his belly, and that's his only weak spot. And if you stun him or you leave one of these mines under him, he'll flip over on his back and you can shoot him in the belly a bunch.
Yes. You can get him stunned. Like if you're playing co-op, one person can grab his attention while the other gets around behind him to get some shots in, because his backside will like kind of like hang up over him like a scorpion or something like that.
Exposes his little belly.
Yeah. So like there's multiple ways to do this. If you're playing single player, it is mostly luring him into ambushes on the proximity mines. He doesn't like watch for and avoid those. No,
he's a real dum-dum.
Yes.
So when he dies, a Jeep pulls up and we hop in. Like, hey kids, want to make $20 the hard way? And like, just like, yes, sir. And this, co-op, and then also just like video game ass shit. This level 2-3 Savannah, which is going to be us in the back of this Jeep that has 2 machine guns, and literally like, don't hold down the fire button, it'll overheat. I'm like, cool.
Okay,
let's go jungle.
The arcade game. Yeah. Well, that also was like a dating game or something like that.
It is. It's a dating arcade game. It's about it's like a TA and a nerd and testing their compatibility by how well they shoot giant ants and shit.
Huh.
So
cool.
It's great actually. It's like a really good arcade game, but it is dumb as hell. And that's this as the motorcycle gang is back and we have to shoot them.
Yeah, motorcycle gang, and also like Mad Max style like battle trucks that are coming up.
Yep.
It's long. It's a very long section. You don't have an individual health bar. You're like dealing with the health bar of the vehicle that you're on. So, you can find yourself kind of screwed for health at a checkpoint. It's not you can't make it unwinnable, but like, I died a couple of times just because, again, as a problem with going solo. And, it's up to the listener to decide if like it's worth holding it against the game for that. But like, if I was playing this with somebody else, I could say, okay, you take left, I take right,
Yeah. And that would take care of it. As is, you just kind of cover where your partner isn't.
Yeah. Your partner isn't. Yeah.
Yeah. As you're riding, day turns to night, so it's a long drive. You reach a town square where we see evidence of this horrible massacre. Sheva says, like, what could have done this? And RE4 coming back, baby, a Gigante attacks.
Yes.
And this is a boss fight, except that we can use these turret guns.
Yes.
So it's a little bit of a twist on the Gigante fight.
Yeah, so you're going to be focusing fire on him. That is your primary way to defend yourself, because you can stun his attacks. Like you can interrupt him before he comes in. This is complicated by the fact that there are other enemies who come along, so you have to deal with them. Like that is primarily what will do damage to you. You can also defend yourself by succeeding at QTEs to do dodges when he does big swipes.
Yeah, it's a very gimmicky, shitty boss fight. And we just had a boss fight, like
primarily just a big cinematic almost.
Yeah, and extremely arcade gamey.
Yeah,
like there's little parasites on them, and Sheva's like, maybe we should try to shoot the parasites. I'm like, yeah, okay. so once you kill the small ones, the large one erupts, you shoot it, and this just happens 3 times. Very uninspired.
Yes.
After we do this, we see Delta Team has gone. Chris says, hey, this was our backup, but I'm continuing on.
Right.
Even if the mission is hopeless, I have to because my old partner is alive.
Yeah, and Sheva says, shit, partners? Yes. Why didn't you say so?
What's that word? I love that word.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Calls her uncle. Hey, I found that new word you're looking for.
Sheva's like, oh, that's crazy. The 2 of us shouldn't fight all of this nation.
Yeah.
And but I'll go along with you because I know you have to do this.
And then Chris turns around and is like, well, weren't you about to cut and run? Like, it's in the same conversation.
Yeah.
It's literally like, hey, I don't think this is a good idea. Well, I'm going anyway. Well, I'll go too. Weren't you leaving? Like, I'm agreeing with you, you moody piece of shit.
Yeah, he's a real insecure asshole in this because he just got broken up by Jill. He didn't know, and this is about passing the torch. This whole game is a metaphor for finding a new wife.
Yeah.
So now we're like, let's go to the trouble zone. So we're going into 3-1. We hop on a fan boat, and Chris relays the story of what happened to Jill.
Right. This was a couple years ago. They had gotten a tip about the whereabouts of specifically Spencer, Osmond Spencer, one of the founders of Umbrella, and they knew that they would help them find Wesker because obviously the BSAA is interested in Wesker as a big player in this. They arrive too late. They find Spencer dead on the floor.
Yeah, and Wesker's there. They get into, a big fight here. Wesker is about to finish off Chris, has him in a chokehold, and Jill tackles him through the window.
Right.
They fall off a cliff, and because they're idiots, they're like, oh, Jill's body was never found. She has to be dead.
Right.
Just through the law of conservation of details, like, we're just like, oh, I know who that is. That's a bummer. We now know Jill is in the story.
Yes.
And then Shiva relays her backstory as well. At this time, like it's fanboat time, so it's time to do this. She joined the BSAA because her parents died in an accident staged by Umbrella to cover up the development and sale of bioweapons for terrorists.
Right.
And that's her first of 2 plot beats.
Right. Very, very undersketched, let's say.
Yes.
Yeah.
But again, in wireframe, I love this level.
Yep.
This big wide open body of water with little islands.
The little mini dungeons that you go to get the necessary pieces. Yeah.
This is a blast. It's also the place where you can abuse the restart system to get money.
Oh yeah.
The bad guys don't show up until you do a certain thing. You can go through and collect a lot of things without running into the bad guys, including a rocket launcher.
Yep.
That's on a crashed ship, and then you can restart, sell that, and do that until you get some good upgrades.
Yeah.
Which I did because I'm a degenerate gamer.
Yeah.
I grinded.
Hey, they put it in the game. There you go.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
But this is good. Like, there's a main exit that is that is clearly marked. You need to find these plates to get all of these, and you fan boat around to these mini dungeons. And there's like a good amount of variety to these. Do we want to talk about what's bad about this?
Oh yeah, I think we should. So this is a rural part of this country. In this continent, and the idea here is that we find a lore note that explains this, that everyone here is throwing spears and in war paint and headdresses and stuff. And the reason, Capcom's like explanation for this that will make us ashamed of our words and deeds is that getting infected by the Plagas makes everybody dress up like their ancestor.
It causes like a cultural reversion.
Yes.
Yeah.
Turns them in, so a cultural reversion, when he's succumbing to this thing, he talks about, he's like, feels good, scream stop, looks fun, I want to kill. The implication here that these people, when they go back to their ancestors, become bloodthirsty murderers.
Yes.
Also isn't good, Capcom.
They're making they're inadvertently making like a racial essentialist argument that is kind of straight out of the Turner Diaries.
Yeah, it's this part of the game is definitely like Crowder approved, in terms of the kind of race science behind this. And this is even putting aside the optics of you just shooting a bunch of people and tribal gear.
Yeah.
It sucks. It feels bad. The wireframe of it is super fun. These are interesting enemies to fight, but the spear Magini have different moves. Like they do these hunter-esque leaps, like Left 4 Dead style.
Yep.
That you can dodge. It's pretty neat.
Yep.
But boy, it's queasy.
Yes. So it's uncomfortable, and this is present for the majority of the rest of the game. Like eventually you get back to more industrial settings, like you're outside of the place where specifically like this tribe that was experimented on by Tricell and Umbrella. You get away from where they are, but you're going to be dealing with them for a long time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Great.
Yeah. So just when we talk about how fun the combat is, understand that there is a patina of this just kind of discomfort all around it.
Yeah, you have to go into wireframe with it. The end of this has this huge melee with a bunch of enemies, and there are two huge guys with these big ornate headdresses that basically act as armor. They've also been setting traps. There's a soldier body in the middle of this arena with a magnum, and if you grab it, spikes pop up, and guys with flaming crossbows.
That is so good.
Yeah, it's a good trap.
Yeah.
You have to get out. Very cool.
Yeah. At the end of this is where you find the diary from the young villager. Pretty much every RE game, or most of them, has chased after the itchy tasty, and never quite achieved it.
Yeah.
So,
including the DLC for this, which just recreates it.
Well, it's just the same thing. It's just that text.
That book just gets around.
Yeah. How did that survive? How did that survive the self-destruct?
Oh my God. You haven't read A Song of Ice and Fire? You have to borrow my copy. And it's just this like 4-page diary.
Oh God.
That everyone's chasing around. But you get through this, eventually getting to stage 3-2 execution grounds.
Yes. Yeah. So we reach this stake. And it's a whole village, like a still village, like similar to what you found in RE4, right? And we get there just in time to watch a troop be fed to an alligator by a village leader.
Yes. Warning us, that's Gator Country.
Yep. To get out of here, like one partner has to ride on this raft and dodge gator attacks with QTEs, while the other partner turns the crank in order to move the raft along.
Yeah. There are advantages to having your AI partner do any of these things. The AI partner will always succeed at QTEs, but also your AI partner turns the crank way faster.
Yes.
So it'll be over quicker if you let her do that. Once you get to the end, you press this button to lower the bridge to get out. And as we go further in, we find this group of tents with the Tricell marking on it. Chris remarks that Tricell helps fund the BSAA, and they shouldn't have tents here. Dun, dun, dun.
What if Tricell is bad?
Yes. How long do we have before the BSAA is like absolutely compromised? Because we already have like Blue Umbrella and Red Umbrella.
I think that's why we have Blue Umbrella. I think the BSAA got compromised, and that's why we have Blue Umbrella.
Fuck, man.
Yeah.
Like it's not the cool part of the lore, everybody.
Nope.
Like the tax shelters that all these companies are setting up is not the cool part.
Yeah.
Like
So inside of one of these tents, and this is obviously like it's modern, like this is like military tents that are set up here. You find these research notes about how they developed this Type 3 Plaga, kind of a step towards making this perfectly subservient super soldier, which was kind of the purpose all along of these BOWs. This is what we saw them injecting, this is what they ended up injecting into the villagers that we passed through. Like they took everybody, gave them this inoculation, saying, "Hey, this will protect you from diseases," and this ended up killing the women and children, leaving only the men. And that's like playing on an actual thing that has happened. Look up stories about like the ways that inoculation programs have been used specifically in like Pakistan to as like CIA fronts to like fuck people over. So like they are telling a story about Western powers coming in and taking advantage of this population, but they're doing it in a really bad way.
Instead of them just dying, they turn into witch doctors.
Yes.
So like, it's like it kind of undercuts the tragedy a little bit. Yeah. So you pass through these gates into this oil field, and the walkway here is blocked by these gouts of flame. So we kind of go like this is a weird little puzzle box room where we have to use one-way zip lines and ladders and stuff to get these valve handles to turn off the jets. And as we do so, chainsaw men come out and chase us during this. I love making them deal with a zip line because they just kind of stand and wait for your partner to use it, and you just shoot them in the head. It feels good. The one at a time zip line, which is true in real life. Like you can't, you know, I brought my own zip, like, you know, and nobody's doing that. You don't pocket zip. You know, but yeah, this is a really fun arena, I think. And these are the fun fight.
Agreed. But yeah, you turn off all these valves, and then this lets you proceed deeper in. You find Josh again, and he is super angry to learn that his team is dead and that we didn't retreat. They're like, oh my God, you idiots. You should not be here. And he says, yeah, Irving's plan is to blow up this whole oil field to destroy the evidence of what he did.
Yeah. And then you say partner. He's like, oh, okay, that's why you're
hanging out. Okay, yeah.
Why didn't you say so? We had to protect him for a little while he works some terminals to get the doors open. Again, just the defense zone. This is more linear and less open. There are more like hallways and ladders and choke points. So it's a little bit easier, but also you have to make sure you don't get cornered.
Here. They throw in ladders and stuff here that ended up being like good bottlenecks. I like that a lot.
Yeah, I do too. It's a minor variation on the RE4 defense section.
Yes.
You get to these docks, and the cloaked figure jumps off of Irving's boat while he gets ready to make his escape. And he says, you know, it's just in time for the fireworks show. Boom. And Joshua looks at him and is like, there's never been a more deadly man in Africa. Like this is I'm scared shitless, guys.
I don't know how to deal with this.
So Joshua is at the other end of the dock, and he has a boat of his own. So we have to reach him as enemies flood in. There's a 2-minute timer to chase down the boat.
This is good. I like this timed escape thing. Yeah, and when you reach it there, the Trisal oil facility goes up in flames.
Yes. Yeah, done. No more evidence. This introduces us to the oil fields. You know, as we ride the boat downriver, some Magini boats chase us, so we have to shoot them down as we're riding, and then get out and open these gates.
Right.
This is fun. There's a little bit of that like mini dungeon flavor. There's a couple places like you can get to that are a little off the beaten path for treasure. This feels fun. When you reach this inlet, you almost crash into Irving's ship, and we see this flashback here of this cloaked figure demanding that Irving kill Chris and Sheva. And he looks to a syringe full of red liquid and is like, hey.
My secret weapon.
Because we've caught his ship, he's cornered, so he's going to inject himself in Resident Evil fashion and become a big monster.
Yes. He didn't get the good stuff that turned him into the I forget. There's like an actual line between like the different types of plagas. He didn't get the one that let him remain human. This is where he turns into the big like Leviathan or whatever. Transforming, grows these huge tentacles and gets in the water. And this is where he emerges with his head attached to this big tumor body, says the famous line, I just had an extreme makeover.
Yeah.
Remember that show? Yeah. That show that was on?
And he's really banking on Chris knowing it.
Yeah.
Like, what if it switched to Chris and he like talked us in and went like, never miss an episode. And like sticks a clip in.
You keep Ty Pennington out of this.
Who's Ty Pennington? I'll tell you, she was my partner.
Next time we're on a fan boat.
It's really bad. It reminds me of, in terms of bad lines, it's in the like Storm from X-Men 1.
Oh,
like what happens if a toad gets struck by lightning? Kind of Hall of Fame to me. It's horrible. I hate it.
Yeah, and again, separate and distinct from your right hand comes off.
Which is meant to be funny.
Yeah.
And is them having little weird, kind of goofy, flirty moments of teasing each other like school kids.
Yeah.
Them trying to recapture that energy is pathetic. This feels like a little kid dressed up as his dad to me. Like,
can't walk too fast because the shoes are too big.
Yeah, she was too big, can't walk so fast. Like, and it introduces like a really like I don't like this battle very much.
No.
This like set piece battle versus it feels like they're trying to top themselves by making the monsters like even bigger. And this one's basically a Pacific Rim like tentacle underwater. Most of it is underwater.
It's a kaiju, but most of what it can do, because they can't just have it instantly kill you, because that would suck, is like, what if there was a tentacle that could just knock you down whenever it wanted, and you have to watch your character stand back up? Like, that's pretty much the experience of this fight. Is there's not much you can do about getting knocked over. I hope your partner can cover you until you get back up.
Yeah. As he kind of circles the boat, which has rocket launchers mounted on the front and machine guns on the rear. You shoot him from a distance, do damage, and draw him in. The tentacles rise up. You shoot the thick parts of the tentacles to break them off, and then eventually, like, he opens his weak point.
Yes.
His pod opens, and you shoot him with bullets.
Yeah. This lasts for a long time. Like, it is the majority of this chapter. And, we're talking like a 15-minute boss fight, which is a long time.
Really long time. Yeah. When you do enough damage to Irving in the pod is deposited on the ship. He's dying, and he's basically doing villain, like, you don't actually know anything. He mentions in his dying breath, like, damn, Excella, I guess I wasn't worth the good stuff. He didn't get the good red thing. And you talk to him, he's like, you fools, the balance of the world is changing. You're oblivious to it.
Yes.
The Ouroboros project's going to change everything. And again, in X-Men 1 DNA, the plan is very similar to just putting a giant crystal in the Statue of Liberty and turning everyone into a mutant and most people dying. This is a lot of parallels with X-Men 1.
Which isn't the good X-Men movie. It's not the worst one.
Yeah.
But
no, it's the top of the bottom third, maybe. And when you just point your gun at him and make Chris grunts, and he eventually learns your name, and he laughs. He won't say anymore.
Yeah,
because he's heard of Chris.
Yes, and then he dissolves, taking his answers with him.
Taking us to chapter 4:1, the caves.
So our boat, we putter into this little cave cove. And we see the Road Woman's escape boat. She is docked here. So Josh is going to go try and lobby HQ for more backup while we continue pursuit.
We can only send 2 people after this, or 2 groups after this army. Like, well, I don't know why he has to lobby HQ.
Yeah.
Send in an army. They have a bunch of monsters.
Yeah. Well, they've lost 4 units already or something.
That's true. Send them all in at once, you idiots.
Yeah.
So as we walk into the caves, Sheva says that Irving said the name Excella.
Yeah.
Because if you're sad that like our really bad antagonist is gone, don't worry. And she says, "Oh, Excella, that's the name of the head of Tricell's Africa division."
Is Tricell bad? Are they involved in this? Say it ain't so. We saw your tents.
Could be.
Anybody can put up those tents.
It's true. It's a false flag, false tent operation. The caves give way to like a bunch of ruins,
right?
Which these are flooded with these kind of mutated spider creatures that burrow in from the ground, which are fine-ish.
I wish that their primary function wasn't to get you in a grab attack and stop you from moving.
Yeah, it feels like co-op bait.
Yep.
Your partner can knock them off of you. And the caves go, these caves are in, eventually we go deeper into these ruins, and there are more of these tribal Magini who live here.
Yeah. And we reach a room with these huge round, kind of like metal boulders. I don't know what these serve. So these are like these are like Legends of the Hidden Temple traps if Legends of the Hidden Temple had a body count. Big metal boulders that roll through fire, and there's nothing inside them that keeps them moving. They just keep going. And so like one person has to turn this wheel to open a door at the far end to get through it, while the partner can get through it before it closes. However, you have to dodge these things that you can't really do anything about as they bounce around chaotically.
They're really similar to those cage balls from American Gladiators.
Yes.
But with no American Gladiator within.
Right. Invisible gladiators.
Invisible gladiators. Redfield is a good name for a gladiator.
It is.
As we get through this, we do a QTE section where we dash through this hallway of collapsing pillars and falling statues, including an ending thing where we dive over each other.
Yep.
Simu dive as ways only partners can do.
Yep.
and get to this very long section where Sheva and your character had to pull on these chains on these statues in this really, really big chamber to align these stairs, opening up a path upwards towards this pyramid.
Right. There's not too much combat in this. Like when you pull one of them big gold chains, like some enemies come out, ultimately kind of culminating in another bat demon that is it's an optional fight. Like you can either deal with it down on the ground, or you can just run up and there's a cinematic where it gets crushed by a gate as it tries to chase you, you know?
You get a treasure if you kill it.
Yes.
We get a cutscene where Excella injects Wesker with something. We don't know what yet. We'll find out later. And she kind of starts hitting on him. We should talk about Excella.
Yes.
Excella is a like discredited Bond villainess. Like this is really big James Bond femme fatale energy.
She is coded like she's a comic book like French aristocrat lady.
Yes. With big ridiculous boobs, and just drawn really something for daddy.
Yes. Yeah. And she is working with Wesker, and this is our first time that we've seen Wesker. I forget if he has been alluded to before. She wants to serve at Wesker's right hand in this new world that he is creating. And that's not going to work out for you, lady.
Yeah, he's a bad partner.
Yeah.
The road figure walks in, says the BSAA have arrived. The voice is familiar. Excella leaves with her. And Wesker flashes back, we're getting flashbacks even for the villains, to murdering Spencer in the mansion. We've seen this scene before where Chris and Jill showed up. Spencer is talking about using the progenitor virus to create a new race of men for him to rule over.
Right. Yeah, and we're going to find out. I mean, like Wesker is one of many Weskers. He's an experiment, like not necessarily a clone, but close enough as it goes.
Yes.
Like that are the live action Resident Evil Netflix series that's coming, like stars two of the other Weskers.
Weird.
So fucking dumb.
Yeah.
Don't get excited about that.
Yeah. So the camera pulls back and Wesker reflecting on his past to reveal that he has all these missile warheads that are marked Ouroboros.
Yes.
It's courteous of them to mark what's inside the missiles.
Yep. Just so you can read it as it flies toward you.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So this goes into a 4-2 worship area, which begins as this kind of like large maze level, with again these like gigantic sunbeam traps, lasers, that shoot down.
Yeah, it's like people are manning them, and really it's just like a cascading damage area that goes down these hallways. You have to like time your runs between the safe areas to get down them. Yeah.
And then we get to this series of 3 chambers where we do these light redirection puzzles with like pretty easy enemies and light enemies. So it just like it's the puzzle section, and the puzzle section is also the Indiana Jones section,
right?
Of this game.
Yeah, like the wrinkle on the light redirection is that you cannot walk through the beam, or else you will catch fire and die. So that at the very least is something that most other games that use that trope, they don't do it that way. So I guess I'm bright siding this section, Gary.
Yeah, no, it's not bad. It's like a nice break in the pace.
True.
And stuff. Yeah. Once we do though, we reach this ominous chamber, the Stairway of the Sun.
Yeah. We go in. It is like this short little pyramid. That is terraced with dirt, and it is growing these rotten looking flowers that kind of glow in the meager light, and there are bugs that are swarming around them. And so this obviously cannot be good. Chris looks over at some gear. It's like an overgrown object, and he goes to brush off some of the moss or whatever and sees, oh shit, there's an Umbrella logo here, and there's some Tricell gear. Turns out, all right, so Tricell is Umbrella, but also like this is where Umbrella got their start.
To where they got their groove back.
We're back to the beginning, baby. How Umbrella got her groove
origins. Back. This is Umbrella Origins.
Yes.
So
yeah,
and we go to 5-1. This is a great set piece too.
I like this. Yeah.
And this goes to 5-1 Underground Garden. which is a lot of exposition here initially and kind of learning what they were doing here in this early research lab.
Yes. And you're finding these logs that were written by basically like an uncredited Umbrella founder who they just deposited here. They basically like sent him to Siberia. But his name is Brandon. And the first one like dates back to 1966 and 1967. It was him, Marcus, leech guy from RE0, and Spencer. When they were safaring in Africa, they found this flower that, according to the local tribe, the Indapaya, like the people that we were fighting, their local legend said that, people who eat this, they would grow strong, like into these super soldiers, but they would die afterwards.
So Marcus discovered that the flower grown there could alter the DNA. That legend was true. They called the virus the progenitor and tried to cultivate it in these various conditions in America, but the flowers would not contain the virus that were grown. And this is what inspired Spencer to start Umbrella.
Right. So a second log that we find as we're going through, like, it's kind of neat because as you go, the facility gets more elaborate and more modern. But you find a second log here saying like, yeah, Spencer and Umbrella, they chased the Indapaya people off of their land and started building this research facility. Brandon is the one who stayed behind to continue extracting these samples to send off to Marcus at the training facility, where they were both doing research and also training Umbrella managers. Like that's the program that Wesker and Birkin went through. Again, RE0 stuff.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
So they use this stuff to formulate the T virus, as we mentioned. As we head into this more modern part of the facility, we see a licker dash across the ceiling. That's a legacy Resident Evil enemy that we haven't done in this engine.
Right.
So kind of exciting. There's a tricell terminal we read that has a journal by one of the researchers named Miguel. Talks about how they need the progenitor virus in addition to the T virus, G virus, and T Veronica virus samples they already have, and the Plagas. So it's a real...
Gonna mix them all up in one big pot.
Yeah. They got a lot of irons in that fire.
Yes.
So...
But yeah, Miguel, he's, other logs reveal that everybody who works with him hates him. But he despises the fact that they are forced to, alongside this research they're doing, manufacture liquors. Saying like, yeah, they're an evolutionary dead end. You can't make them see anything. Like we made them smell a little better.
Yeah.
Not like gave them the ability to smell more, not made them less stinky. But yeah, like we have to make these to sell them because that's like our cash crop.
Yeah. Yep. And we go through this like facility that is covered with these slash marks and bloodstains. We can see this is liquor country. This is where they were growing the liquors to sell and feeding them these caged animals.
Yes.
And we fight some liquors in this engine, which is fun and new. They basically behave the same way, but it's a little bit fun to be able to aim.
Yeah.
And, as you move through, they still react to sound. They are blind. So there's a door you can open. If you open it too loud, you get a bunch of them. You activate just a huge swarm of them.
They break out of their chambers. I don't think you're supposed to survive that, but like I just dashed and button mashed to get into the elevator to get out. It was a fun scene. The lickers act a little bit like the smokers from Left 4 Dead. Like they will use their tongue to hold your partner in place. So you end up having to free them. It's a little bit of an emergency as it goes. Yeah. But you do get out, whether or not you free all of them. And you reach the silo from the pictures. Like you find a missile silo that is surrounded by all of these pods that contain research subjects. Basically, they've been going and kidnapping people to run experiments on them. Like one of them opens and it reveals this like withered corpse that falls out into this pit. Chris figures this must be where they're keeping Jill. Yep.
It is like a bottomless pit. Like we are now so firmly into super science. Like it is ridiculous. It's like a vendor's pit.
Yeah.
They're in. You look up Jill on the computer and you find that there's a file on her. She looks like Jill, except she has blonde hair. He tries to call up that pod, but it's empty.
Right.
And we get a boss fight.
Yeah.
A big spider comes up on this platform. I don't know what this guy's story is.
I don't know why he's here. Why does he attack us? There's no document about him. Like the other one was delivered initially in a truck. So like, yes, this was a BOW that they were making. Like it was deployed at us intentionally. The spider though, he's just living in the big pit, maybe feeding off of the bodies that drop down. I don't know, but it's just another co-op boss fight. Like he's
how
exposed.
Often did bodies fall down? Like how often do bodies fall down in there? Like it's so weird.
It was a pretty slapdash operation.
Yeah, there's a satellite surface to or sky to surface orbital Helios cannon on the last ship of this for no reason. Like this is not a game that is concerned with dungeon ecology at all.
So this fight, it's again like it's basically very, very similar to the Irving fight, insofar as the primary threat that this offers is to knock you down. But what you're doing is like you're shooting the exposed muscle points on its legs in order to make it drop and open its mouth parts so you can shoot at it.
Yeah, weakness. And it will release these kind of bugs from its crotch, its babies, which you can kill and they drop ammo. So if you run out of ammo. So after we inspect Jill's empty pod, Excella shows up on the monitor to taunt us. She will not tell us where Jill's at. So we continue through the facility into the experimental facility. All the things we've seen so far were pretty, de rigueur.
Yes.
This is where they're doing experiments.
Yeah, this is where they're out on the edge.
As opposed to just the rote spider tower.
Yes.
Though everybody learns in the first year of med school.
So the opening of this is a few combat arenas. Like we're kind of in the military area. So this is like when you get to Krauser's Island in RE4, you're fighting against Soldier Magini, doing cover shooting against them in an engine that is not really it doesn't lend itself to that. Yeah.
You get into this elevator and we hear a radio transmission intercept it between Excella and Wesker. And this is where Chris learns that Wesker is still alive.
Yeah.
And, this time it's personal. There's a long hallway we have to go through with lickers crawling on the ceiling and floor, and they basically act as like spikes.
Yeah.
Like you can fight them, but you can also just sneak by them and they just go in circles on kind of rhythm.
Yep.
Like those wands of fire in Mario 1.
So for as goofy as it is, I also like how tense it is. Like they can get pretty close to you before they actually aggro. So I managed to get out of this unscathed, but it felt like there were a lot of close calls.
Yeah. And the next area goes into this zone with conveyor belts.
Yeah.
Ground level, the belts have these crates that provide cover, but there are explosive barrels up above, and there are also corpses on these.
These corpses will animate and grab you. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of cool. Like there's a variety of hazards that are kind of moving through.
Yeah. This is in addition to, the regular Magini that you've been fighting. The way that they make them tougher is they start throwing them in with metal helmets at first, and then ones with metal shields. And some of them actually have like stun batons that will do a devastating amount of damage to you if they get up and attack from close up.
Yep. We get a little preview. We find a note about a creature called the Reaper. It's taken up residence in one of the Ouroboros loading facilities. We probably shouldn't go in there. But of course,
we have
it's ahead of us.
Yeah.
So, and this is where they stick Ouroboroses into missiles.
Yes. Loaded up with that virus that turns people into weird leech monsters. And this is where the Reaper attacks. It emerges from a cocoon on the ceiling. Like, I like the creepy area. Cover with like their webbing and stuff like that. Like, that's cool. That is the only good thing about them. I fucking hate the Reapers, Gary.
Yeah, it's a really shitty enemy.
It's really bad. Do not punish me with instant death. They they move quicker than the chainsaw guys, and their instant death attack, which is basically a death hug, procs like instantly. And with the movement system in this, there's really no way to get out of the way. Like there's not even a QTE prompt to stop it from happening.
Yeah. Well, and they're also like, it's Resident Evil 5's trick. Like they just have a big glowing weak spot on their belly. There's just like a gummier area you can shoot.
Yes.
And if you don't hit that, you don't stun them. And it's difficult to, like, these guys are designed around having you and your partner both focusing fire.
Yes.
So one of you can get it. And if your partner is an AI, this can be really frustrating.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not against like an instant death in general in Resident Evil games. Like a lot of the enemies I like do this. But this, I agree, this is probably the most frustrating of the instant death, like hunter class.
Yeah.
Resident Evil monsters.
I died so much of these things in a way that felt like it was not my fault. And that's not normally what I go to.
They suck.
Yes.
So
yeah. So we get to a very deep portion of the lab here. We get a cutscene. We see like these worm-like creatures in these tanks. We have seen these before. Like, this is what we fought back at the blast furnace. Excella taunts us from this control room and says, like, hey, if you want Ouroboros, here it is. Then she sicks her Ouroboros zombie on us.
Yes. In a red barrel filled flamethrower charging room.
Yep. Again, the worst possible place to deploy it.
Yeah.
Activate the slow-moving dipping machine.
Literally this.
Yeah.
She explains like, oh, we're not just selling Ouroboros to terrorists. This is a philosopher's stone that will force evolution and kill the unworthy. Yeah. Thus shunting Resident Evil plots from a relatable commercial kind of interesting thing to just garbage.
Yes.
So this is very similar to the one we wiped out in the flame chamber. Mm-hmm. It's bigger, it's tougher. It has it's kind of like Venom.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah, he stretches his arms out like the Bandersnatches and stuff, and we need to blow those arms off by lighting it on fire. Mm-hmm. And we can do so. There's a flamethrower which we can get and then recharge. We can also use flame grenades.
Yes. Yeah, this took me a couple of tries. It's difficult. Like it feels like a good let's say 1-up on the previous Ouroboros boss. I wouldn't want to do more of this.
No. And in the terms of Resident Evil 5 bosses, it's all right.
Yes.
But this is a bad game for boss fights in general, I think.
Yeah.
So then we moves after we kill it, we go to 5-3 Ouroboros Research Facility.
Mm-hmm. Which seems to apply to all of this, but who am I to say?
It seems like your main thing here.
Yeah. So there's a set of instructions here for using the Ouroboros virus. And they say, like, if it rejects a person's DNA, what you're going to see is a bunch of leech-like pustules that erupt, consume the host, and then start going after anything else that lives in order to like bulk up its biomass, which is the first time that Resident Evil has ever accounted for biomass, which is fun.
Yeah, because generally things just get bigger.
Yes.
They grow mass from nothing.
Yeah.
Or they get less dense. And we haven't really considered the idea of standing a hollow Birkin.
We stand a hollow Birkin. Oh God, the hollow Birkin theory.
Yeah, but Birkin could be like one of those chocolate Easter bunnies.
Oh God, I hate those. Just a nightmare, disappointment. That was when I stopped. That's when I stopped believing in God. I was it was like a church Easter thing, and I worked really hard to win a little contest to get a chocolate Easter bunny. I'm 7 and I get it, and I hold it and I open it up and I take a bite out of the ears because you always eat the ears first. They're hollow, and I'm like. The God's throne is empty, Gary. God's throne is empty.
It's a weird thing about those Easter chocolate bunnies because the solid ones are also a nightmare.
Well, yeah, because they're not made out of good chocolate.
Scrape your teeth across them to just harvest a little bit of chocolate.
Yeah,
you can't eat them in one sitting, so you just have this gross, partially chewed.
Yeah, bunny
with teeth marks all over it.
Halfway wrapped up because the foil never closes entirely.
Yeah. Easter's fucking gross, dude.
Yeah, no good. Anyway, so that's what happens when it unsuccessfully assimilates. Turns into the leech monsters we've seen. The successful assimilation, they haven't seen it. They don't describe it. All that they say is contact your manager to let them know that it happens.
We're hopeful.
Yep.
Everybody we fed cyanide to has died, but maybe one won't.
Maybe.
So these are, as we move through here, these are a walkway where there are Reapers, there are armed Magini, there are these cover elements.
Yeah.
I think this is where the Magini with the rocket launchers show up.
Hereabouts, yeah.
Yeah. So those are a big deal, obviously. Mm-hmm. So lots of instant death here as we kind of move from cover point to cover point.
Right.
To try to make it. This is where I ended up using a lot of flash grenades. Which have a surprising range.
Yeah.
And ended up buying me time to make up for my AI partner.
Well, especially to get from cover to cover.
Yeah.
Yeah. We find another file here about how they prevent information leaks. The way that they do this is they gather up researchers, gas them, shoot them, and then burn them in the furnaces, which sounds less like an information control policy and more like just murder. But
yeah, efficient.
Yeah.
So you have to send these moving platforms back and forth to get across, and enemies will shoot you while you do this in rocket launchers. You want to snipe them or let your partner snipe them.
Yeah.
If possible. Inside we get this other specimen solo. We have to fight off these enemies as a platform rises. The platform will not continue until the people on these little terminals on the side will get killed.
Yeah.
And there can just be one, like this game does not do a good job of telling you what direction you're being shot from.
Yes.
Which is real classic video game stuff. You put a little red marker or something.
Yep.
Or even just an arrow. But as is, like many times this elevator gets stuck and I could not figure out who it was waiting for me to kill.
Yes. Well, also like you're not really shooting that far above you or below you on this. And the things that are shooting at you might be very, very high above you.
Yes. Yeah. Pretty frustrating.
Yeah. This gives away to a section that gave me fits. I don't know if this if this bugged you as much.
This took me many tries.
Yeah, we're getting back kind of into ruins. Like we're going out of the back of the labs here. Back into Paya territory. But to get forward, you have to lower this bridge, and to get there to get to the little control house, one person needs to go up this elevator and make their way around this big balcony that has lickers crawling all over it. And as you pass certain points, more lickers will flood in behind you. They make it look like this is another one of those sections that you can get through without aggroing them. Like, okay, lickers are stealth enemies. I can just sneak by them. No, not really. You need to actually hurry as much as you can, get to the end and push this barricade out of the way and hope that your partner will, cover you. Yeah.
And either way, sending the partner or going yourself are both very difficult.
Yes.
I died both ways.
Yeah. I ended up dying most when I opened up the little bridge control room at the end, because AI Sheva would just dash inside of there as the lickers that were behind me poured through the ceiling and killed her. There was nothing I could do to keep her out.
Yeah. Bummer.
Yeah.
This sucks. You get to a room with Excella, and you demand to know where Jill is. The robed figure attacks, and Sheva shoots her and manages to knock her mask off. Showing everybody, and this is all done in slow-mo action.
Yeah.
Over the top action stuff. So we're not getting a good look at anything. It's very cinematic. Wesker comes down doing a slow clap. He's like, "You finally found us." Us. This is the big family reunion, pulling the hood off and revealing it's Jill.
Yes.
And she's been Winter Soldiered.
Yeah. So, Jill, once revealed, attacks with a karate kick. This starts our 2-on-2 fight. It's partner versus partner versus partner with partner.
Versus partner.
Yep.
It's, finally, doubles match.
And Wesker says, 7 minutes. 7 minutes is all I can spare to play with you.
Which I like.
And it's true.
There's some delicious Weskerism.
Yes.
Yeah, and it can be a fight, which if you can't win, but you can temporarily defeat him to get treasure, or you can survive for 7 minutes.
Yes.
And this is a really fun arena as well. You don't want to hurt Jill.
Nope.
The game Sheva will yell at you.
Your partner.
Yeah, just like you said. Not now. But she will keep shooting at you.
Yeah.
But what's more interesting is Wesker. Wesker's weird, Matrix vampire moves work so much better in this engine than in Code Veronica, I think.
You never fight him in Code Veronica. He's just there. He's just present as a AI, not AI. It's just for cutscenes.
CGI.
Yeah.
But in this, it makes sense in this world, I guess.
Yeah. In the world
I guess
that
that's what I'm
was set
saying
up here.
is yeah. It's like it made sense you would never fight him there because it just wouldn't work.
Yeah.
Here, though, it's actually pretty fun because he's immune to bullets. He dodges them. You have to distract him.
Yeah. So there's a section, if you go by this one door, he will kick you through it. This opens up more of the arena. It gets you into these hallways where he will suddenly start walking. And the thing about him is you have to attack him when he's looking the other direction. That's the only way to actually do damage. So you can hide and get around behind him, fire some shots, and then move again before he comes and gets you.
He has, during this section, he has a lot in common with the protagonist of the song Centipede by Buckner and Garcia. Like, he walks around doing like, I'm coming to find you. Like, and it even
Come out wherever you are.
Like the voice of Buckner and or Garcia in that song is not that different than Wesker's voice.
Yeah, I mean, like, this is full on British Wesker. Like the more evil he gets, the more British he ends up being.
Yeah, he starts with England and New England. But you can also just avoid him and sweep up treasures and get away from him. Eventually, he leaves after 7 minutes, or you defeat him. Chris tries to stop him, but Jill attacks.
Right,
and Chris briefly gets through to her. Again, this is very cliche. Like, I know you're in there. Mm-hmm. Wesker takes out the Jill. The JYL
he takes out the
app.
Jill app. Yeah. Please, JLL.
It turns up the Jill. This causes her to rip open her jumpsuit, revealing that she has like a techno gem. Like she has a reactor core like from Iron Man in her chest.
Mm-hmm. She's got like it's like a scarab kind of beetle attached to her there. Like, what this is, again, because I go wiki diving, because I read about this bullshit, like, they had developed this super soldier serum that makes you super capable and super subservient, but it needs to be continuously ingested. So like, this is a thing that just immediately, continuously gives her the drip and can be controlled by app, essentially. And this starts a boss fight against Jill, where the object is not to kill her, it's to try and get through to her.
Yeah. And shoot the thing off her chest.
Yeah. Rip the thing off her chest.
Yeah, rip the chest. And you can shoot it too. It makes it easier to rip.
Ooh, okay.
And your AI partner will shoot it with 100% accuracy. So if you get behind Jill, your partner will shoot it, which is really great because it's a really small target. It's hard.
Yeah.
Hit. Once you get her to resist enough, the gem will shock her. This allows you to get on her and do a button tappa to restrain her, or Sheva will suplex her and you try to pull the thing off.
Yeah.
And you have to do this several times.
This thing is like really attached on her. When you ultimately like pull it out, like, those tendrils are really long. This had to have been connected to pretty much every system in her body.
Yeah, it's pretty gross.
Yeah.
Pretty hardcore.
Yes.
Eventually you yank it out.
Yeah.
And she comes to her senses. Like, she's like, I was aware of everything, but I couldn't do anything about it. I'm so sorry.
Yes.
And Sheva's like, it's okay. And she goes, you're Sheva, right? and she, like, which I don't know what Jill's talking about.
Yeah.
And she's like, yes, I am. And this is the passing of the torch. This is where Sheva becomes Chris's partner as opposed to Jill.
Sheva has Jill's blessing. Just like every time you get a new girlfriend, you ask your ex-girlfriend for her permission.
it's exactly that. Yeah. Like you're like, it's crazy. And she's like, no, it's fine. You still have to stop Wesker. Don't you trust your partner? And looks over at Sheva, and then you're like, oh, like, Chris just like, weekend dad. Like, Chris just slowly comes to and figures it out. And it's very funny.
I like your Chris voice. Like, after it's like after Tim goes through mega puberty.
I'll be a man now. It's because Chris goes through mega puberty. Yeah, like the P virus. Like he's just gone through like absolute testosterone. The T virus. Yeah. So we cut forward, to just Jill going and doing something, which we'll see in one of the DLCs.
Yeah,
and Chris and Sheva getting onto the bow of the ship. Wesker, and we see Wesker walking along another ship nearby with Excella.
Yes.
And we're kind of like towards the end game here. We don't have very much left.
Yeah. We are in chapter 6, starting with 6-1, the ship deck.
Yes. So the opening of this level is this kind of crawl across this container deck. Every once in a while we get locked in with these Magini, some of which are the big fat dudes. Yeah,
that take just a whole bunch of ammo to put down. Yeah.
Yep. Eventually we reach this lab with Excella, and she flees. We shoot, but we don't hit her. We hit one of her cases and knocks the case loose, which has a vial inside it.
Right. And Sheva grabs the vial, looks at it like, that's weird. I mean, it's good for all the communication.
I should drink this, right?
It looks so tasty, cherry flavored. Now, for everything the game is communicated, like this seems like another sample. It's like what she gave Irving, right?
Yes.
But it's not. It's the magical Deus Ex Machina that we need. We proceed further on and we reach Excella in her lab here. Like we said, she has left. There's a computer note here from Miguel. Again, this researcher talks about him trying to create a virus with none of the downsides of the previous viruses. The hint is every virus started as a way to get over the downside of the previous viruses.
Yeah. This keeps struggling towards it.
Yeah.
So we're inside. We have a mini boss fight with the Magini with a chain gun. Again, just straight up from Resident Evil 4.
Yep.
And then this kind of shooting gallery of these different Magini with rocket launchers, which we take out. After we do this, we get on this elevator and we get this cutscene of Wesker watching us.
Right.
We're in pursuit. And a flashback of Wesker talking to Spencer on that fateful night.
Yes.
And this is where we get a big lore dump.
Right. Spencer is talking about the Wesker children, revealing that Wesker was in some part manufactured and that he is the only survivor of the project. Yeah. And Spencer, like, he's talking about how ironic it is that this was his life's work to create this race of people that he could rule over as a god, because obviously he deserves that. But by the time it's, ready to happen, he is, on death's door. He's old and infirm. How ironic could it be that a god like me could be infirm? And of course, this is when Wesker jams his fist through Spencer's chest and says, that right is now mine, the right to rule the world. He has taken his revenge on his kind of father. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure we're going to find out a lot about it in Netflix. Like, this the storyline of Wesker flattening out to be a really boring character.
Oh, yeah.
We get to 6-2, the main deck here, which is back out in the open air, and there's this huge pile of corpses. This is a great set piece. It's very creepy. And Excella is there, and she's writhing in pain. She's talking about how Wesker has forsaken her.
Yep.
And this is where Wesker cuts in on the PA and says, like, Ouroboros is on the eve of its debut. And, he's Excella, the implication, Excella's been injected with it. And this is where Sheva goes, but Wesker and her were partners. Why would he betray his partner?
Don't be naive.
Yeah, and Chris. Excella turns into another Ouroboros.
Yes.
And assimilates this big pile of corpses.
Yeah. And that's how she gets bigger than the other Ouroboroses that we've seen before. Much bigger than the biomass on those corpses would have you believe, but at least they're making a nod for it.
Yeah. Yep.
So we get through the ship. We're trying to get up to the deck here. This is an intricate QTE section, basically where we're trying to escape the tentacles as they burst through the ceiling and the floor. And also, dealing with some enemies. You get up to the bridge. This is where you find the note about Project W. Yes, Albert's failure at Raccoon City marks the broader failure of this project. This is written by Alex Wesker. That ends up being a villain in Revelations 2, actually.
Gotcha. Yeah. So we pass through this bridge and reach the front of the ship where we're doing another big set piece battle. Big Excella Ouroboros is grabbing on. She has these big red bulbs that we can shoot, and we have to shoot those and then target her with this very convenient orbital laser device.
Yeah, there's a kill sat that is targeted with like a rocket launcher, basically.
Yeah.
So you just have to mouse over one of the bulbs for long enough for the kill sat to come down. This is pretty straightforward. Like, there are 2 levels you can fight on, and she will like bring little creeps in to fight you. The big problem is there's an instant death phase where 4 of the bulbs will line up and start glowing. Like, you need to actually if you're playing this by yourself, you need to put down the targeter and actually fire at them with your regular guns to stop that from happening.
Yeah. They knew this was going to happen.
Yeah.
Like, that's why they have the satellite gun, I guess.
I suppose.
It's weird because they're going to do it to the whole world. I don't know. Like, this is where Wesker and Umbrella's plans are dumb.
Yes.
Like, so, dumber than they've been.
What if we succeed and something mutates, like after we spread the virus everywhere? Yeah.
Yes. Which is all we want to do. So it's super dumb.
Yeah.
It's a pretty annoying boss fight, and it's not mechanically like very fun, I don't think.
And also Excella is as bland as wheat paste. So
yeah, absolutely horrible.
Yeah.
This goes on to 6-3, the bridge deck. We return to this deck. We see a security feed showing Wesker getting ready to board this assault bomber. This is how he intends to spread Ouroboros. But luckily, Jill radios us at this point and says, like, oh, yeah, I just remembered something. Wesker's strength comes from a virus. He needs to stabilize himself with injections. You say, oh, so if we don't give him an injections, he'll get weaker. And he, like, there's this great dialogue that feels like a draft. Like, this feels like a correction.
Yeah.
Where Jill's like, well, he actually just recently took a dose. So it'll be a while before. And I just feel like somebody's reading it and was like, wait a minute.
That's
they can't
dumb.
come off from this. Yeah. They need to stab him with a vial or something.
Yeah.
A syringe. So it's, they accounted for it.
Right.
Well, actually, he just recently had a vitamin, so it'll be 24 hours before he needs another one.
So that's the vial that we got off Excella is this serum. We can we can further destabilize him by giving him more. People who have played Metal Gear Solid 4 will know this is exactly how you defeat Vamp.
Cool.
Which is ridiculous. Yeah, it's literally the same thing. So fun.
Yep. So we do this section where we are going through these burning cargo areas, opening up these bulkheads. This is a bummer. Agreed. And eventually we fight 2 Reapers who are joined by minigun Maginis. This is the regular enemy last stand.
Yes.
Like every possible trick we can pull.
I died at this a lot.
Yeah. This is a bummer.
2 Reapers is it's too much.
Yep. 2 Reapers too many. When you get through this, though, and you reach Wesker, we do a boss fight with Wesker. He opens his attack cutscene by throwing his sunglasses at you to distract you, which, again, go flow through the air like a sunglasses commercial. And he does his villain speech.
Yes.
Here.
He says, I'm going to get rid of all of the unnecessary people and rule over this new age of man as the ultimate Superman.
A lot of faith that there will be some people left to rule. And that's real contrary to every single thing that's ever happened in his life.
Yes.
So
yeah.
Dumb. But we do this fight 2-on-1 with Wesker, which I really like. Where the idea is we can turn off the lights here. And, he can't see in these things. We have to make it so he can't see. And we have rocket launchers around. And there's this really awesome thing where you shoot a rocket launcher at him and he can grab it out of the air, and then your partner shoots it.
Yes.
And him pushing the rocket off of him is actually the kind of anime bullshit I can get into. I was actually kind of into this.
Yeah, he's holding it like it's a rabid cat that is attacking him.
Yeah.
Trying to hold it at bay. It's very good. I like that a lot. I'm also kind of into the anime bullshit. Like, if he gets frustrated by trying to find you, he will jump up onto the level where he has this Harrier jet, and he will pick up missiles and throw them like they're footballs at you. Like they're paper planes. Yeah.
Very cool.
What's the name of the Nerf football that has the fin at the end of it so you can throw it really far?
I think it's just called a Nerf. I'm sure it's called the Eliminator or some shit. I just always thought when I think about a Nerf football, that's what I think about.
Yeah. I just, love those things. It's the Nerf Vortex. There we go. The thing about the Nerf Vortex is it has little whistles on the side of it. So if you throw it and you get a good spiral, it makes a sheer. We had them on the playground. When I was in elementary school and middle school, what you would do is you would throw them at somebody from a long distance. And you'd just be walking along, or they'd be walking along, and they would hear, and they would hit him in the head. It was perfect. Yeah. It was the perfect toy.
It was the perfect thing to being colleagues with.
Yep.
In school.
Yes, but Wesker does that with missiles. So
yes, so I can't believe he'd do that to his colleagues. I like this fight though.
Yeah.
Eventually, when you hit him with a rocket, enough this distracts him, so one person holds him, the other person runs up and injects him with extra goop, and this makes his eyes glow red. He swears this isn't over. He jumps onto the jet, and we barely jump into the bomb bay for the second phase of this 3-phase final boss. Yeah,
so we do some QTE stuff, fighting in close quarters inside the bomb bay here. Chris is able to open the hatch before the plane reaches the necessary altitude to spread Ouroboros. This is what he's doing. Like, that's his plan to get high enough and, spread it so it can hit the jet stream and, kill everybody. The open hatch starts drawing the plane down and sucks Wesker out, but he manages to grab Sheva. And you do a QTE to help her. And ultimately, you grab her so you can shoot Wesker as we crash into the caldera of this volcano.
As you do.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know why we're in a volcano now.
Drama reasons. Yeah.
We crash, we stock up on stuff here, but Wesker, now that he's gotten the extra juice, he likes the juice. He is now shirtless and punches into this unexploded Ouroboros missile to infect himself because he just wants revenge on Chris.
Yes.
He's willing to give up on his dreams, but if it means killing Chris, he's so one simple motivation for another. And he pulls back a bunch of his tentacles and these shards of the missile they're on them and moves to attack.
This is a cool design, I think. Like, him whipping the piece of the missile around is good.
Sure.
Yeah.
This is a really stilted, shitty end boss, though.
Yeah, it is. I don't like it. I thought that dumb as hell. I thought that it was more mechanics based than this. No, it might as well be like a big QTE challenge almost.
Yeah,
like there are like several things that you need to do in a very particular order, and if you mess up, you die, and then you restart like at that little section.
Yep. Where Wesker is pursuing you as this volcano is kind of falling apart around you for some reason. I don't know what happened to the volcano. So you have to slow him down.
I think a plane crashed into it.
Well, it seems like a volcano is stronger than a plane.
Probably. It's a pretty big volcano.
Yeah, it's a pretty small plane. So Wesker is pursuing Sheva. You have to slow him down because she's your partner. And this culminates in you punching a boulder to make a way for her to get across. This is famous.
Yep.
Because it's Chris punching a boulder.
Yep.
It's as dumb as it seems. Like, this is a pretty dumb ending to this game.
Yes. Yeah.
So...
don't care for it. But by the time you all get to the high ground here, the real fight starts. Wesker will hold his arm up to be struck by lightning, in the metal shreds, so he can do his attacks. The thing that you're trying to do is deal enough damage so that he'll perform this whirlwind attack around him, leaving him vulnerable to be restrained. This is not necessarily communicated. It kind of seems like you're supposed to just, use that downtime to actually do the damage to him. No, what you need to do is basically a repeat of a lot of the other partner kind of sequences where one partner gets behind and holds him and the other one comes up and does a little button prompt on the front, right?
Well, that is one way to kill him. You can also just damage him.
I tried that a bunch.
It's difficult.
Yeah, I didn't have enough ammo.
Easy, but you can just hurt him. The way you're talking about, that kind of way of doing this apparently is impossible to do on the ultimate hard mode on professional. Because as you're holding onto Wesker, you take damage. You can't die. You can't make it through the cutscene. So you have to beat him with conventional weaponry.
Yeah.
On that level. If you do this and you get this stab thing, you actually take him down. Jill arrives on a helicopter to grab you, and then Wesker comes out of the lava. And instead of a Resident Evil game ending with one rocket launcher being fired at the monster, because it's a game about partners, they're his and her rocket launchers that are fired at the same time.
You press both the shoulder buttons and it goes. Chris says, "Suck on this, Wesker." Real subtle, guys. Extremely subtle, actually. Yeah, good job on that subtext. And you kill him. Wesker falls and burns to ash inside the volcano. I'm sure to come back later.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Hasn't happened yet, but he's iconic.
Yes.
And then we get this emotional ending here with Chris in monologuing. This is the same monologue at the beginning of the game where he says more and more, I wonder if it's all worth fighting for. But then he concludes, for a future without fear, it's worth it. Yes. And I don't know what game he was playing or what messages he learned from this volcano monster. That he just double rocket launched after crashing into it on a jet plane filled with bombs marked Ouroboros. But this is definitely, the many points in which Resident Evil loses it. This is one of them.
Yeah.
You cannot deny.
Nope, not at all.
Yeah.
I forgot that Jill survived. You don't see her again. She doesn't factor in RE6. Like the only games that take the only time after this on the timeline where she shows up, it's in a memo in Revelations 2 where she says like, yeah, they've like basically they've just been doing experiments on me. Like she disappears and gets the Sherry Birkin treatment.
Yep. Yeah. She's recovering.
Yes.
Like she's feeling better in that memo.
Yeah.
And Chris will go on to be at the end of Resident Evil 7.
Yep.
You know, and in Resident Evil 6 with a smaller version of Chris that he budded and he walks around with and gives commands to and stuff. It's weird.
Yeah.
You know, he decided the ultimate partner was him, but smaller. And Sheva never appears again.
Nope. Sheva's back. Like Sheva doesn't even appear on the cover art for the gold edition.
Yep, it's Jill.
Yep.
So what a kick in the teeth.
Yeah.
I thought we were partners. So we should talk about the DLCs and then kind of do a final wrap up stuff.
Yes.
Because one of these is pretty cool.
Yep.
Yeah. Desperate Escape is the not cool one.
Right.
These could just be things that were in Resident Evil 5.
Right.
It's if you wanted to know how Jill and Joshua, so Jill needs a rebound partner, and how they got out. This is how.
Yeah. So like, you know, Jill, she passes out and wakes up when Joshua's behind her. Like Joshua's been looking for ways to, you know, save Chris and Sheva because, you know, he kind of promised he would. And it's like, oh, I've got this chopper. Well, let's get to that chopper. And then you just go through a military base. The thing is, like, you're fighting a couple of enemies that normally only show up in Mercenaries, but like it is coated with Mercenaries goofiness. So some of them, when they die, they explode afterwards. But when they explode, they scale up in size. So like you'll fight like a chain gun enemy, and as he dies, not just the enemy will like bloat up and explode or whatever, but the actual chain gun will get bigger too.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very funny. The chain gun took the C virus. And then it ends with him introducing another chopper pilot.
Yep.
Who is Joshua's partner, who dies because he gets a direct hit from a rocket. And this is really sad for Joshua. So everybody gets the sad partner.
Yeah. And also it continues the tradition of chopper pilots taken into the face.
Yeah. Rockets and chopper pilots are natural enemies.
Yeah.
Here. This is exceedingly dumb.
Yes.
What's more interesting is Lost in Nightmares, which is not only does it let you play the cool flashbacks that we've seen, but it also is just like a really big love letter to Resident Evil 1, at least for the first half.
Yes. Because like you know, so this is you on the mission with BSA Europe to find Oswald Spencer, and use him as a lead to get to Wesker. And where Spencer is hiding out, he's in Europe, in a mansion that is very similar to the mansion that, you went through in Resident Evil 1. Like the thing you got to know about Spencer is all of his houses have to look the same. Like even the Antarctica base had this to a certain extent.
It's real weird. I've never seen anybody who cares that much about a double staircase like this. Super bizarre. So, and this is full of like semi, like cutesy, but they work for me. Like, I have feelings about like these kind of little callbacks and stuff, but I'm just in the pocket for it. So it's like I can't.
I'm a fan. Service me. Like it's fine. If this was if this was in the main game, that would probably be a little bit annoying. But as a DLC that is built around that, I'm okay with it.
Yeah, it's kind of sweet.
Yeah.
You know, like Jill picks the lock and Chris is like, you haven't missed a touch. You know, and it's like, oh,
yeah,
she's still unlocking stuff.
Yeah.
And then, you know, to move forward, the basement, there's like a door that they have to use a crank. There's a missing crank. And they're like, what is with this guy with cranks? You know, and this is like the little lived in, you know, they're talking to each other in this way more than him and Sheva talk to each other at all.
Yes. Yeah.
Like it seems like they're goofing with each other in a way that's real fun.
It's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, when you go through doors, like instead of just doing the regular breach kind of thing, like the camera will go in and approximate the door opening animation from the loading screens. It's sweet.
And most noteworthy, there's no enemies for a lot of this.
Yes. This is mostly about being, creepiness.
Yeah, creepiness and like little puzzles.
Yeah.
Like there weren't a lot of puzzles in in the rest of the game in Resident Evil 5, and there are more in this.
Yes.
Again, there are all these dead bodies around. We're here after a disaster. Like Wesker has gone through Spencer's security detail and just bust everything up.
Yes.
The Itchy Tasty diary, famous, is in a bedroom, like somebody's reading it for pleasure.
This is what bothered the one thing that bothered me from the fan service here. Like, why would it be here? Why would this diary be here?
Well, it's also weird too because Chris and Jill don't remark on it.
Yeah.
Like, I want them to be like, we've read this.
Yeah. Wait a minute.
Like, we know what happened to that guy. He was in the closet.
Yeah. It was super scary.
Yeah. Man, remember when we used to get scared?
Yeah. Whatever happened. Yeah.
But inside this thing, there's pages missing, and there's a password we use on the computer. There's also this running thing about the loyal butler subplot of the Resident Evil games.
Yep.
The remains of the day, like the things they carried. Yep. Resident Evil thing, were like a lot of very noble servants.
Yes.
And butlers.
Yeah.
This.
Oh, this guy, he has like a really like undignified name. It's like Jerry or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he was talking about like, he remembers the old days when like Ashford, Marcus, and Spencer were really young. And remarks that, my family has served the Spencer family forever, but Osmond, whatever his name is the last of his line. So we are very much, at the end of days here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Spencer has been having his butler administer the virus to people.
Nobody will work for Spencer now because
I wasn't hired to do that.
Yeah.
So he's had to like kind of make himself dead inside in order to continue this tradition of service.
Right.
Jill plays the Moonlight Sonata. They talk about it like, hey, you think you still play it? Oh, it's been a while. Again, love letter stuff.
Yes.
You go into the eastern hallway. There are dogs barking outside, but nothing breaks through.
Mm-hmm.
Until later we come back through and something breaks through, but it's just a bat,
right?
Which is like strong bat.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know that we're taking enough attention to this like extremely beefy bat that can bust through a window.
Yeah. Or I mean, if not beefy, can achieve a very high velocity.
Yeah. Bullet bat. So one or the other.
Yeah. The final password is on a piece of thermal paper that you have to heat up in the dining room. I was a little bummed out that there wasn't a pool of blood in front of the fireplace, but
sure.
can't have them all.
Yeah.
But these passwords all go to a computer where you get the butler's final entry, final diary, where Spencer sent him to figure out where Wesker was and send him a message in a way that Wesker wouldn't know where the message came from. Saying like, yes, Oswald's like, I need to see Wesker, but he can't know it's me. So like the butler went through Ada to get to Irving.
Yes. So that's connecting Ada into this in a very, tangential way.
Yes.
So Spencer then fired the butler. What a kick in the teeth. And the last thing in the log is the name of the 13 candidates for the W project, the people who are making Weskers.
Yeah.
Jill or yourself, depending on who you play as, because I played as Jill.
Yes.
During this, I was like, why wouldn't I? Got locked in this falling spike death trap, Jill sandwich style. You have to go around to the other side to shoot. Jill has to shoot the lock. You have to then go in through and do a lever.
Yeah.
To get the crank handle to go down to the second part of the game, which is not a love letter to Resident Evil 1.
No,
but it is like a horror, scarier Resident Evil 5, basically.
It is nice and spooky. Like there's a big prison facility beneath this where they were holding people for torture and experimentation. It's nice and spooky. There's only one kind of enemy here. It's like this torturer guy. It's like
they're called blobs.
What's that?
They're called blobs.
Is that what they're called? That is not.
They're called, yeah.
That is not inspiring. It's like a spindly guy who attacks by swinging an anchor around, and the idea is like, you don't want to get hit by him because he's real. It's made he'll take you out.
It's an anchor.
Yeah,
one shot.
But what I do love is that his body is spindly, but that's because all of his organs and flesh and like eyeballs and stuff are on a flesh backpack behind him.
Yep. Which is, of course, his weak point.
Yes.
So you're going to shoot him. This is where, like, I got a lot of use out of the melee.
Yeah.
In this, where it was like shooting him in the back until he took a knee, or throwing a grenade at him so he took a knee, and then running up and doing a melee attack.
Yeah.
So, yeah. You kind of continue to move through this jail, doing these encounters. It varies depending on difficulty. There are a couple little set pieces here until eventually you slide down this deeper level. You lost your gear, and we have to do like a stealth section and do traps.
Yeah.
There are the like Jill sandwich traps where we have to lure these guys into them and then have the trap deployed. And sometimes they stop it, and you have to stun them, so the ceiling will crush them.
Yeah.
It's very slight. Like this and Desperate Escape are short.
Yeah.
Short. Because after you do this, we're done, basically.
Yeah. Like, we get back up to the like main library, and that's where we fight Wesker.
Yeah, he's just killed Spencer, and we get the kind of dumb fight that happens until the cutscene we've already seen, where Jill throws Wesker out the window.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
And that's Resident Evil 5 Gold Edition.
Yeah, I had fun with this. There are some real frustrating moments with instant death, lots of retries and stuff. I think that what you said earlier, were like, yeah, it's Resident Evil 4, but 20% worse. So still on the balance, like worth your time. I still think of the mainline REs. This is my least favorite. Like maybe Resident Evil 0. I would say 0 aside. Yeah, this and 0 are kind of in the same tier for me.
Yeah. What would 6 or Code Veronica?
I would put. That's tough. I would put them kind of on the same tier a little bit. I think that Code Veronica would get the edge because I just like its presentation a little bit more. I think that I give an edge to classic style Resident Evil outside of the context of the perfection of 4.
Yeah, I would probably agree.
Yeah,
with that, but they're not as far apart as maybe I would like.
Yeah.
This is fun. This is worth playing. I don't know if I will play it again. This might be my goodbye.
It'd be fun to stream. Okay. Like there's some goofy stuff. Like I don't know if that'll be the last one for me, but
yeah. It is fun, and it's some of the ways in which it's shitty or problematic are like actually like incredibly damaging and serious. Some of the ways it's shitty are actually kind of fun in a totally different way.
Yeah.
It's not like bad RE1 voice acting or whatever. So as a big fan of the franchise, like there's some fun to be had in just like, fuck Irving, fuck Excella. Like, God, Wesker sucks now. They're in a volcano. This is so dumb.
Yeah.
Like that is kind of fun. It's a different kind of fun, but I'm not immune to that kind of fun. I just have less interest in it.
Yep.
So like as is, it's like, yeah, I'll take the 20% as fun. In terms of narrative and stuff, Resident Evil 2, or 30% less interesting and good in story. Like, I just like the series and the stuff this is trucking with enough to where even a greatly diminished version of it is still worth a little bit to me.
Yeah.
And luckily I don't consider 6 to be another downgrade of this. If it was just basically co-op Resident Evil 5, but just even worse, I would have had a really hard time with it.
Yeah, 6 actually like improves the gameplay and makes it more fluid and fast in a way that matches the heightened level of enemy activity, I guess. That helps it survive mechanically, even in the face of more bad instant death QTE stuff.
Yeah. Yep. So good. I'm glad it was. Thank you for sponsoring this. Who's it, Ryan?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Ryan. Appreciate you.
Yeah.
If you have anything to say about Resident Evil 5, hit us up at Duckfeed.tv/contact by October 15th. Or if you have anything to say about Dino Crisis 2, Soma, or next week's episode, Doom 3.
Yes. Next week's episode is a premium episode. The last, game episode of every month. Everybody, the public feed gets the generalities, but the whole episode will be available on our Patreon. Go to patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv. That is at the $5 tier. And that not only gets you the Doom 3 episode when that comes out, but all of our premium episodes and a bunch more.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a good value, we think. After that, we'll be doing our dispatch, where we'll announce what we're doing in winter. But for November, we will be playing No One Lives Forever, Uncharted Waters 2, and Marathon 2.
Yeah.
So November 15th is the deadline for those.
Yes. Other than that, word of mouth is the best thing that you can give us. So if you have friends who, if you have friends who like video games or podcasts, they have, through the course of quarantine, run through other podcasts that they enjoy and they're looking for more, spread the word, please.
Yes. And we would appreciate it.
We would.
Until next time, what should they watch out for, partner?
My extreme makeover.